Good morning, it's 6 o'clock. It's Friday, the 19th of May. My wedding anniversary.
Aww.
Just throwing it out there this hour.
Special day.
Happy anniversary. Now, today, Rishi Sunak backs himself for victory. The Prime Minister has said he will win the next general election and continue to deliver for the British people. The UK has unleashed a swathe of new sanctions against Russia. The rules will see an end to Russian diamonds, nickel and copper arriving on our shores.
The count begins in Northern Ireland. Over 450 council seats will be up for grabs as Sinn Féin look to overtake the DUP as the largest party in the region. And could you be replaced by a computer? BT has announced that 10,000 jobs will be cut and artificial intelligence programmes would be used to fulfil their duties.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. And a happy wedding anniversary to you. It's a lovely day, isn't it? 19th of May.
Yeah. It's also my brother-in-law's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Well, he's no longer with us,
Oh.
sadly. So I put you in a sorry. But so it's an important day. It was an important day. Now we've got two things to remember.
Isn't that nice?
It is
the
nice.
two things.
This is his tie, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Sam's tie. So I wear it today for Sam. But isn't it... I can't believe where the time goes. They do say as you get older, the time passes faster.
Well, I'd only just met you, I think, and you said, oh, I'm going off to get married next week or something.
You were gutted, weren't you?
Yeah, and I said, oh, I really like this man. He's off to get married already.
See, it's what she does
Leaving
to people.
me.
But what should you get for a wedding anniversary present? What should I be bought today? According to the Daily Star, a pair of Y-fronts. Y-fronts? Apparently they're coming back, all down to Erling Haaland, because he posed with Liam Gallagher in his Y-fronts. And apparently the sales of undercrackers, as the Daily Star calls them, are up 45% as a result.
You heard it here first. Y-fronts are trendy again. It's what everybody wants, apparently. So there you go. That's what you could get as your anniversary present.
Please, no.
No.
Thank you very much indeed.
What's 1 year? Paper.
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 Yeah, paper.
Paper.
So-
You need to write a little letter.
Cold, hard cash would do nicely. Thanks very much indeed.
Very good idea, very good idea. Well, do let us know where you're watching and listening to us from this morning. Anything you'd like to talk about this morning, any of the stories that we're going to be touching upon, we'd love to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Maybe it should be, where did Rishi Sunak get his umbrella from?
It's very GB News.
It's... Which camera are we on? There you go. But it's... I really like that with the Union flag on the inside.
Yeah, it's very GB News, and then blue on the outside, very nice.
And
very on trend.
his wife wearing a nice outfit rather than that thing she was wearing the other day.
What was she wearing
She had bright green trousers and a bright fuchsia top. Looked awful.
Oh.
But that...
I think she's very attractive.
That looks nice. Well, she's very
Mrs.
attractive.
Rishi Sunak.
Yes, she can get away with anything, really, but I thought that was...
We like
much.
her.
But I like the brolly.
Yeah,
There you go. Well done, PM.
It's
on
very
that one.
GB News. I feel like maybe we should go after that.
I think so.
Very good idea.
Yeah. We've waffled on enough. Our producers just said, cue the read. Which says...
But we're on theme.
We're on theme. Yes,
Yeah.
because Rishi Sunak has backed himself to remain in power and will win the next general election, so he says. He's also ruled out any coalition with any other party, including the DUP.
Well, Mr. Sunak has been speaking at the G7 in Japan, where he's also unveiled new sanctions against Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Well, let's talk to political commentator Lesis Bromovsky, who's here in the studio. Good morning. Look, first and foremost, on the PM saying, well, we're going to win the next general election. Well, of course, everyone's. I mean, what else can you say?
Not exactly. He's not exactly going to go out there and be like, we're losing, we're never going to win this. So this isn't a surprising comment from him. It is quite a bold first step, I would say, because it does seem, considering the local elections we've just had, that they are not particularly a front-runner for this or even expected to win. He has also ruled out having any sort of coalition with the DUP. Now, we know the DUP did help support Theresa May's government back in 2017, but realistically, the relationship has changed a lot since then, particularly around Rishi's Brexit deal, which was opposed by the DUP at the end. So relations there are sort of fraught. He does think he's going to win outright with a majority, but, I mean, we will have to wait and see. Anything could happen
Keir
between now
Starmer
and then.
says the same thing, but
But, yeah, it feels unlikely.
I'm sure Ed Davey's probably saying the same thing as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm sure he's saying, here we go, after those local election wins.
Yeah.
So very optimistic messaging from Rishi Sunak in Japan at the moment. What do you think he'll be looking to achieve at the G7? He'll want to look statesmanlike, won't he?
Well, exactly.
To abroad and at home.
That's going to be one of the main things. As we were just saying, they've taken a bit of a bruising in domestic politics recently. He's going to be looking to really showcase himself on the international stage as a leader and having this influencing power. At the top of the agenda is going to be Russia and the Ukraine war. That is clearly a front-runner. However, all of the G7 countries are united behind Ukraine. So I don't think it's going to be as a contentious topic as perhaps China might be. The battle for Rishi Sunak, as he's come out and said today, will be with India. So India have been invited, although they're not part of the G7, they will be in attendance. And they have remained neutral against Russia, largely because they get a huge amount of their energy and their weapons from Russia. So they've been taking a neutral stance. So that's where his battle's going to lie at the moment. He has announced new sanctions against Russia that we found out this morning. As you mentioned before, diamonds, nickel, copper, we will no longer be importing them from Russia. And it is expected that the other G7 countries will follow suit on similar sanctions.
I mean, all this, it sounds sort of fairly good on paper. Whether it'll have any sort of significant impact, we don't know. And that's part of the problem with this, isn't it? We need him to come back with some pretty serious and defining points.
Yeah, like we were saying, he needs to sort of solidify his position on this, and he needs to showcase that he is doing well. The other main thing that will be up is obviously relations with China, and this is going to be much more contentious, and people will be looking to see what comes out of it, because each of the G7 countries has a sort of different stance against China. You will have US at the one end of the spectrum, the very tough, saying, you know, we need to have tougher policies against Chinese expansionism. And then at the other end, you have countries like Germany and France who have both visited China recently, and both countries have accepted investment from China. So they will not be looking to muddy the waters in any way in those relations there.
How problematic is that, though, with what Liz Truss has been up to in Taiwan? Because obviously, diplomatically, that's very difficult.
I think what Liz Truss has been doing in Taiwan has been problematic for Rishi. Obviously, there is the growing tensions between China and Taiwan that something is going to happen. Nancy Pelosi was there just at the end of last year, and she caused huge problems for the US in terms of their relations. I think that Rishi and Liz Truss do have a sort of fraught relationship at this point, considering everything that happened last year and how Rishi is now the new Prime Minister, the leadership election. So I think what she's doing is largely unhelpful at this time. But we have seen that the UK and Japan have increase their sort of relationship-building stance with this new Hiroshima Accordance, which came into place yesterday. And that will include more military exercises between the UK and Japan to sort of showcase a united front. So that will help in those type of situations.
And Lettice, was it last year or the year before where the G7 received criticism for being nothing more than just a photo shoot? So the world leaders, not just Rishi Sunak, we want to be seen to be doing something important and perhaps coming back with something concrete.
The G7 last year got huge amounts of criticism for the leaders. The photos were rather bizarre that came out of it. They were very chummy. They related it to sort of a stag do. There were no ties. Yeah, exactly. There were no ties there, as if they were trying to make it trendy and cool event. And actually, the sort of feedback, you could say, was that people were like, this is a very serious event. We need you to be there making very serious geopolitical decisions and not look like you're having a sort of, you know, a few drinks with a few pals around a table together. So this year they will be looking to be significantly more serious. It is in Hiroshima, which has the significance of being that nuclear bomb site back in 1945. So there is already a tone of more serious reconciliation and past culture.
OK. Lettice, thanks very much indeed. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you very much.
Now, it's 9 minutes past 6. The brother of TV star Philip Schofield is going to be sentenced for child sex offences this morning. 54-year-old Timothy Schofield was convicted of 11 sexual offences involving a child between 2016 and 2019.
Promoting lower-calorie takeaways in delivery apps could help to tackle obesity. That's according to 3 new studies that found calorie labels played a major role in reducing the overall calorie content of the orders. They say modifying food delivery apps to include lower-calorie options could help people live healthier lifestyles.
More than 6 million disabled people will get a one-off payment of £150 from the 20th of June. The government says they recognise the extra costs that disabled people face, including care and mobility needs. Pensioners will also get a further £300 later this year. That all seems very good in a way, and it will cost a lot of money. But on an individual basis, 150 quid doesn't do a lot, does it?
No, it doesn't. But
That's the reality of it.
But it is. I did a story on this probably about the best part of a year ago now, and it was a lady with an electric wheelchair, and she said even the cost of electricity, obviously just to charge up that wheelchair, is huge. And she said £150, it's not a lot, but, you know, it's something.
It's better than nothing.
Stuff you don't think about like that.
Yeah,
it's a lot. And obviously...
Hoists and things
Hoists,
people have.
yeah. And not being able to get to, you know, perhaps cheaper supermarkets out of town. She just has to go local, shop in those small shops. I mean, the costs of being disabled is, astronomical. And stuff you wouldn't think about. Do let us know what you think of that story or anything else that we're talking about today. There's a story about kissing in... What's this in? The Daily Mail. So the history of the smooch. Apparently, this is the history of how kissing came to be. Earliest recorded kiss took place in Mesopotamia 4,500 years ago. And apparently it led to a huge outbreak of herpes.
Well, it would do. It's a kissing disease, isn't it?
My goodness, yeah. Apparently it started in the Middle East almost 5,000 years ago, which is 1,000 years before what people previously thought was when it started. This is the article here in the Daily Mail today. Yeah.
There you go. I'm surprised it's not been around forever.
No.
Don't chimpanzees and things
It's a bit
kiss?
odd if you think about it like that.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. If you're... No, I don't know how you would respond to that really via email, but there you go. I don't know what would you say? I have no idea. Surprise me.
It was a husband and wife team who researched on this, apparently.
I hope they get on.
From the University of Oxford. Well, I'd hope so, yeah. And they say that kissing is something that we take for granted, but it's much older than we already thought. Yeah, baboons and chimpanzees have done it, and it creates feelings of empathy and bonding. There you go.
I thought you were going to say impetigo then.
Maybe that as well.
I don't think so. Right, well, yes. Any thoughts about your first kiss? Does it still set your heart aflutter? Probably not, because it's probably not who you're married to. So there you go. Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now, the counting of votes is set to begin later in Northern Ireland's council elections.
Yeah, the voters went to the polls yesterday to decide who would represent them across Northern Ireland. Now, Sinn Féin fielded the most candidates, followed by the DUP.
Well, the final results are not expected to be confirmed until Saturday.
OK, let's talk to political commentator Dr John Coulter. John, really good to see you, as always. I mean, is this election make or break for the DUP?
Well, good morning, first of all, folks. What I would say is I've described this as a feast or famine election for the DUP, because it is essential if the DUP is to justify its current boycott of Stormont, that it finishes as top dog ahead of Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin are running more candidates than the DUP. They are running 162 candidates compared to the DUP's 152. In number crunching, if we compare it to 2019, overall the DUP would be less than 20 seats ahead of Sinn Féin, because Sinn Féin will want to do a double whammy on the DUP. In last year's Assembly election, they finished for the first time ever ahead of the DUP as the party with the largest number of seats. Imagine the propaganda value for its campaign for Irish unity if it can finish again in first place ahead of the DUP in terms of councillors. Yes, we have 11 councils here being counted, but the real statistic is who finishes as top dog.
So Sinn Féin will be trying to copy their Stormont victory of last year, won't they? Do you think that could be possible?
It is technically possible, And the reason I say this is, ironically, yesterday's election was delayed because of the coronation of King Charles III. And ironically, we saw major Sinn Féin figures attend that coronation. Now, this was not basically a major change in policy for Sinn Féin, because our political wing does not do political stunts. It does carefully choreographed propaganda. Now, if the Sinn Féin is to finish as top dog, it needs to eat quite significantly into the electorally lucrative middle and upper class Catholic vote, which traditionally went to the moderate SDLP or to the Centre Alliance Party, the equivalent of the Lib Dems in England and Wales and Scotland. So from that point of view, it will be very, very interesting to see where Sinn Féin votes are going to come from. What Sinn Féin has been able to achieve is to move into the Catholic middle class here in Northern Ireland, whilst at the same time holding on to its hardline Republican working class strongholds. And that will be a key aspect of things. Sinn Féin, as I say, doesn't do the knee-jerk stunts. It does long war politics. So you shouldn't be taken in by any appearance of Sinn Féin at King Charles's coronation. This was a deliberate ploy to get that vote.
Just briefly, John, I mean, one thing which seemed fairly significant is in this campaign, at least, Sinn Féin didn't really seem to be pushing the Irish unity question. I mean, they've almost sort of taken it as read and just allowed people to look on other issues.
Yes, the throwback from this, if Sinn Féin does manage, as its strategy seems to point to become the largest party in Northern Ireland, it will then be looking at the elections in the Republic of Ireland. Opinion polls there show Sinn Féin odds on to become either the largest party in the Dáil in Dublin or at least be a major player in a coalition government. That's when you will see the Irish unity debate and a call for a border poll really take off.
OK. John, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
More to come, including why British farms are scrambling to try and solve the egg shortage. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is very nearly 6:20. Good morning. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Still to come.
Have scientists made a major breakthrough in the fight against pancreatic cancer? We'll have more on this exciting new treatment at 10 to 7.
And the UK, brace yourselves for the tears, has lost 6 billionaires according to the Sunday Times Rich List. But who's made the exclusive club this year? That's at 10 past 7. It's me.
Oh,
me. I'm in.
I wish I was in that club.
I mean, it's absolutely crackers, isn't it?
Crackers. Crazy well.
And the Hinduja brothers, who top it, as they always do, they've gone up about, I don't know what it is, but lots of billions of pounds up.
Well, it's all right for some, isn't it? In a cost of living crisis. The rest of us are all struggling and...
Do they own Tata? I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do now, the Hinduja brothers, but anyway, they're rolling in it.
We're fascinated by it anyway. Who's on the list? Why are they there? How have they made their wealth? We're sure you are too. Get in touch, gbnews@gbnews.uk. Lots of people wishing Stephen a very happy wedding anniversary.
Oh, thank you very much.
The 19th of May is a very special day for Stephen. Sharon says, a very happy wedding anniversary, Stephen. David says, happy first wedding anniversary, Stephen. Heather, happy anniversary, Steve. Steve, I'm not sure about that.
Ooh.
Also, our mum and dad's 64th wedding anniversary today. They were married in 1954.
Now that's
the 59,
something to celebrate.
Sorry. That is something to celebrate. Brilliant. And Val in Maidstone says, happy first anniversary, Stephen. Great to see you. Hope you have a happy day and enjoy it when you leave work. I'm still in bed with a cuppa and I love watching you first thing. It cheers me up in the morning.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be in bed with a cuppa this time tomorrow.
Yes, you've
Having
got a very
tomorrow off.
well-deserved day off.
Because we're going out for dinner tonight. We don't have to book a table at 5:30.
Yes, and what time is your dinner reservation?
8:30.
Ah, that's bedtime.
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 So very excited. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm very excited for you. And also, fun fact, do you know you share the same wedding anniversary as Harry and Meghan?
Yes, I do know that, yes, but we try not to think about it.
Yeah, sorry. I just saw them on the front page and I went, no way, you've got the same wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
It's a nice date. Who can blame them? Do let us know what you're up to today on the 19th of May. gbnews@gbnews.uk. Now,
A Welsh farmer has warned that Brits may continue to see a shortage of eggs on the shelves for another year as production continues to tumble.
Yes, Leah Jones says that rising energy bills, the Ukrainian war and the bird flu outbreak are piling on the industry.
Well, Leah joins us now. Good to see you this morning. I mean, what is the situation for you?
Well, at the moment, we are seeing that our feed prices have been really high, record high, and energy costs have gone up. And even Labour's having difficulty getting staff. So it's just a lot of little things that's making it just that little bit harder for us to produce the egg. And that's why you see shortages at the supermarket at the moment.
Yeah, and you know a lot of farmers within your community that have actually decided to shut their chicken sheds.
Yeah, it was last year when the high prices of feed were. Some farmers had the decision of not putting hens in because they would lose less money by putting hens in. It was a ridiculous situation to be in, and because of that, because farmers didn't put the hens in, this is why we see the egg shortages today. So that's where we're currently at.
But I mean, the irony of all this is egg consumption's going up in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on average goes up around 3% a year. So the market is good as a farmer. It's good for us. It's one of the healthiest proteins you can have, and it's also the cheapest protein. We're living in a crisis, a living crisis, cost of living crisis, and it's one of the cheapest protein you can feed your family. So it's got everything for it. It's just that we weren't getting enough last year, which is then a knock-on effect now, why we can't produce enough for the supermarkets.
And you've consciously decided to switch, haven't you, from brown hens to white hens. What difference does that make?
So a white hen can produce nearly 200 eggs, more eggs than a brown hen. So a brown hen will lay around about 340 and a white hen will lay just over 500. So just by changing the colour, so it's just a little white thing, same egg inside, It's just that it's white. It's we can just produce more, so we're just trying to help the market a little bit by giving, by supplying the supermarket a bit more eggs.
Is that 300 eggs a year?
Yeah, well, it's the lifespan of the hen. So it's just over a year, slightly over a year. It's 16 months.
How long do hens live for?
Yeah, well, they don't live very long, no.
Oh.
No. What about the welfare of the hens? Because obviously that's very important to a lot of consumers now. But presumably, having free-range hens and all the rest of it, I mean, it's a good thing, but presumably it's a more expensive way of doing it.
Yeah, so we're a free-range farm. So at 9 o'clock this morning, the doors will open and the hens will have just over 40 acres of land to roam and some woodland and some fields that they can just have basically after 9 a.m. once they've laid the egg at 7 a.m. The doors open, they can have the rest of the day off basically, and the doors don't close until 11 o'clock at night. So
do they realise, Leah, that do they realise you've got them on such a tight schedule?
Well, I think they quite like it. They get up at 7. They get their first feed at 7, and then they clockwork ends like clockwork. So at 7:30 they'll start laying the eggs, and then this machine behind me will start working. And by 9 o'clock in the morning, they've all laid their eggs, and they can go out and just have the rest of the day off.
Nice.
I love that, the day in the life of a hen.
Yeah, here's one for you, because just out of pure interest, do you have any cockerels? I mean, in terms of how do you know if the eggs are fertilised or not? Is there any, or are you cockerel free?
We are cockerel free. We don't have any cockerels here because we don't want any fertilised eggs. So it's so they're all females when they arrive here.
Right. Oh, no, just wonder, because I've always wondered about that. Being a veggie, there's always eggs. I love eggs, but I'm always slightly.
You worry about that.
I worry about it a little bit. Leah, what's the future hold for you? Do you think? Do you think there is light at the end of the tunnel now?
Yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Feed prices have started to fall. Electricity prices have started to fall. But we've still got high inflation. UK is one of the highest in Europe. And we've also labour shortages is still a massive issue in the agricultural industry. We're just not getting the staff over as we used to.
OK, Leah Jones, really good to speak to you this morning. Thanks so much for your time. Fascinating, isn't it?
But it makes a racket when they open those gates at 7 o'clock.
Well, we're up before the hens are.
We are up before the hens.
We don't get up till 7.
But I bet it makes a right racket.
I bet it does, yeah.
Get out and about.
What's your favourite way to have eggs?
Scrambled.
Same.
Really?
Yep. But I like them the Gordon Ramsay way, which is, and I think Faye, our director, had them in a very similar way today. Kind of runny. But
Very
have
runny.
to be spreadable, yeah, on a slice of toast or something.
You see, I have them the Kevin Woodford way.
What's that?
Which he puts a splash of oil in and then just does it all in the pat, and they're amazing.
What, no milk and no...
No, there's milk.
Oh, there is milk?
I think.
Oh, see, this
To be
is...
fair, I don't make them. I go home and they're...
And then they're ready for you.
Ready for me.
Perfect. No, scrambled eggs, but just the egg, salt and pepper in a pan, and just really low heat, and it just keeps them really runny.
How do you like your eggs in the morning? I like mine with a kiss. Anyway, let us know. Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Yes, more to come, including why Ant and Dec are stepping back from Saturday night takeaway. We're going through today's papers. That's next. This is Breakfast on GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Dubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Good morning, welcome back. It's 6:31. You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Let's have a look at the papers this morning. And the Express has, I think this is a great picture of Rishi Sunak and his wife touching down in Hiroshima yesterday ahead of the G7 summit. And the reason I like it, frankly, is the umbrella, which I just love.
Yeah, it's a great brolly. Very GB News, very on brand.
I like the fact that the Union flag is on the inside, so it's like not too in your face, but it's there. I really like that.
Branding on point. Yeah, Christine's been in touch saying, Stephen, the umbrella you're talking about are available online for $29.99.
Oh, thank you
Christine's
very much
done her
indeed.
research, yeah.
Thanks, Christine.
The Guardian also leads with the PM's arrival in Japan alongside his wife ahead of the G7 summit, which begins today, but sans umbrella in that one.
No, that's the old picture.
Oh.
That's the old picture where she had that awful outfit on.
Oh, you didn't like that one,
No.
did you? Are those the green trousers you were talking about?
The green trousers and the fuchsia top.
Well, you're very across her wardrobe on this trip, I must say.
Why have they used such a picture from 48 hours ago? It's odd, isn't it?
Very odd. Clearly,
I think they made a mistake. The Sun has Saturday night taken away as Anton Deck this drives me mad. They're having a break from the show after 20 years. But not yet, not till 2025.
Yeah.
He's going to do all of next year
We've
first.
got a while, and then it's just a break, isn't it? It's
Just
not even...
But the last break they had was 4 years long.
Oh, was that?
Yeah. Not that I've ever seen the show.
Well, in the Mail, there's some Hollywood glamour from the Cannes Film Festival as Fleabag star Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Who is that now?
Phoebe Waller-Bridge. There we go. Poses in a black gown, and she does look marvellous. She's got black gloves on.
Does she? I don't like it.
Well, I think she looks great.
I don't like it. It looks like a fish.
It's a fishtail. That's the whole point.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go.
Your
Well, it
fashion
works.
mind is switched on, Stephen.
It works then, because you do look like a fish. And in the Mirror, the Princess of Wales steps out to visit a children's mental health charity wearing emerald green.
Now, we can agree on that. She looks wonderful.
Well, when does she not?
Exactly. And we like her dress. And I've ordered shoes very similar to that. It's the Catherine effect.
You're being paid too much.
No, the high street version.
Oh, are they? Now, someone who knows our high street fashion is broadcaster Liz Kershaw. Good morning to you. Like a charity shop. Is that a charity shop top?
This one's TK Maxx.
All right.
It is a bargain.
We love a bargain.
Yeah.
But you often get charity shop stuff, don't you?
Oh, the dress I done last time, 2 weeks ago, the pink one,
yeah, I like that one.
£5. You were raving about that.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, no, I love it.
I love a charity shop haul.
I think Rishi Sunak's wife, I'm sorry I don't know her first name, Mrs Sunak, has terrible advice on clothes. There was a photo not long ago. I know she was supporting Ukraine, but she had a blue top on and these yellow, canary yellow pants, trousers that were this wide and sort of ended 3 inches shorter than...
Like culottes
so tiny.
yeah.
And, you know, you think that all the money she's got and the position...
When you're that rich, you can do what you like.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Mind you, because the rest of us need to save money, because according to The Telegraph, this drive to net zero, which ultimately, I know it's not popular with a lot of you, but ultimately I think it's an important thing that we do. However, it's going to add 120 quid to our energy bills.
Yes, because this time we're talking about hydrogen gas.
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing new about hydrogen-powered vehicles because I was in Hamburg about 15, nearly 20 years ago, 2005. I was passing behind a bus and got squirted with what I thought was cold water. It was something like that.
Yeah,
and it was a hydrogen bus. And so the technology is not new.
No.
And we're just cottoning onto it. Hydrogen is immensely difficult to extract and very expensive. And I've even read claims that it uses more energy than it actually produces. Anyway, the public are now going to be expected to fund the development of hydrogen gas under the government's net zero plans. I just don't think people can take this much longer or support it. I was talking to somebody yesterday who, through no fault of their own, has lost the job and is currently on job seekers allowance, and which is a few £100 a month, and they're being made now by their energy company for electricity to pay £190 a month. That's more than a third of their monthly income. And you know, there was a report yesterday, wasn't there, that 1 in 5 people, you were doing it in the morning, is now unable to pay bills.
Yeah.
Or credit card debts. You know, people are really struggling. And I just think, yeah, in an ideal world, we would be free of the grasp of the countries that have the resources, such as Russia and the cartel in the Middle East. We wouldn't be reliant on fossil fuels. We do have our own, though, and there'll be a lot of people watching this that say, for goodness sake, let's start fracking. For goodness sake, let's build some gas storage tanks that we scrapped in recent years. For goodness sake, let's allow the big oil companies to start opening, exploring and start opening new
but that
removes
removes some of the incentive, doesn't it, to drive us towards things like hydrogen and making... The more we explore things like hydrogen fuel cells for cars, the cheaper it becomes. I mean, that's the point. It's expensive
in the interim, you can't let people be going backwards, living in poverty. We don't want to be going back to freezing cold houses.
Yeah, but the interim's the next sort of 5-10 years. It'll take that long to get fracking.
Well, it's just not planned and thought out.
No.
I mean, there's another article in the papers yet again today about the lack of charging points for electric cars.
Oh.
So there's only about 10% of what is actually needed. Yeah. People are having nightmares, aren't they? And range anxiety, because if you do find a spot when you're out on the motorway travelling a distance in Britain, then you might find there's a queue.
And half of them don't work. That's a problem as well.
Well, the infrastructure just isn't there, is it?
It's all... but I think what most people object to is that it's the poorest in society that are feeling the pressure of paying for all this.
Yeah.
And we just aren't up to speed on non-fossil fuels at the moment. On a calm, still day, there's no wind power. We don't have a way of storing it. I wonder why we've not got on with water power. We were going to have a huge barrier across the Severn estuary, weren't we? That's not materialised.
There's an issue with that, and I don't know what it is. There's always been an issue with wave power. And I don't know what it is. It's just never quite taken off, but it should be... all this stuff has got to be looked at.
Liz, let's have a look at the front of the Express, shall we? And this is a very confident Rishi Sunak saying he's going to be PM for years.
Well, he had the backing of Jacob Rees-Mogg, didn't he, this week, who said we can't possibly change the leader of the Conservative Party again. This was while that conference was taking place, Conservative conference this week, and various speakers. There was another conference with Nadine Dorries and Co last weekend, where Boris Johnson appeared on video, on screen.
He didn't want to turn up, couldn't be bothered.
No, but it was clear that it's kind of the Boris fan club. And so Jacob Rees-Mogg, for example, was asked, should we be getting Boris back? And he said, oh, absolutely not, we've just looked stupid. What I think is really dangerous, and It's been shown on the ground in the recent local council elections where hundreds and hundreds of local Conservative councillors lost their seats, and they'd had months of terrible experiences on the doorsteps, going around canvassing and hearing people's views right in their face. So you can't get better market research than that. And basically, in one constituency I know well, in the North West, nobody voted Labour. They voted Lib Dem. They just wanted to get, punch the Tories. And what they were saying was, no, we've been betrayed. It's not democratic. We didn't vote for Rishi Sunak. It was a coup. He's been implanted. We lost Boris Johnson, who members voted in. We lost Liz Truss, who members voted in. It's not a democratic party anymore. You're taking the mickey.
But nobody voted for Theresa May. Nobody voted...
They don't last.
Nobody voted for Gordon Brown.
And what happened to them? They don't last.
Yeah.
Gordon Brown was absolutely nakedly ambitious to be the Prime Minister and called time on Tony Blair because they'd allegedly had some pacts in the past. He was implanted as our Prime Minister. I was doing a daily breakfast show on radio at the time. Everybody was just saying, nobody voted for this guy. And then people said, oh, we don't have a presidential system. But no, people want to think that the leader of the party for whom they voted will be in place and run the country. And Blair was ousted, Brown was implanted, and not long after there was a general election and the public voted him out. Theresa May, the same. So people want to be respected. And if Rishi Sunak stays in power for the 2024 general election as leader of the Conservative Party, I think they'll just get trounced.
Yeah, but here's one. If then he's not, the implication there is that he won't be, that you wouldn't want him to be in power. But the problem with that, if there's another change of leadership, as sort of Rees Mogg has been saying, another change, then that just shows a party in disarray. Nobody will vote for it anyway.
I don't think so. I don't. There isn't an easy solution, but and I don't know who would replace him. I know Penny Mordaunt with her fantastic abs and biceps,
sword-bearing skills.
But the people will not vote for a Rishi Sunak government, which means under the first-past-the-post system we'll end up with a very fractured parliament, behind-the-back sheds, dodgy deals done for collaborations and coalitions. It won't be good for the country. But the people on the ground, that's another important factor. The elections are won by the local supporters and party members who do all the footwork and get people to the polls and do all the campaigning and put the posters up, and a lot of it stands out. They've lost. A lot of people that I know are just throwing in the hat and saying, I'm not doing this anymore because for all my hard work, what do I get rewarded with? A coup.
Yeah.
So
let's cheer ourselves.
We're all doomed.
Let's cheer ourselves up with something. I say cheer ourselves up. It depends. If you're a fan of Ant and Dec, then this isn't happening for another 18 months or something.
No, there's a bit of a shortage of showbiz news this morning, but I've never, like you just said it, I thought, oh, it's not just me. I've never watched that programme.
No.
I don't know what
I've caught it a couple of times, but...
I think, is it like like a variety show, like Noel's House Party?
I think it must be,
It's a bit of fun, isn't it? It's pranking and...
If you want to put a bit of meat on this story and you like a conspiracy theory...
Oh, yes.
You know all the shenanigans at ITV with the This Morning programme?
Yes.
Supposing, I saw a quote this week from somebody that said, it was some celeb that's worked on This Morning, there's a can of worms and somebody's poised with the tin opener.
Oh.
So the suggestion being that there's a whole lot of stuff to come out from behind the scenes in ITV involving presenters and bosses, and that's why there's been fallings out and everything, and people trying to distance themselves. Heads are going to roll. There's injunctions out. People have had PR agents, and it just makes me think, OK, maybe Ant and Dec are thinking, this is a bit of a bad place to be at the moment. We're going to just take the rest.
But they're still going to be doing all the other shows that they do.
Well, you're assuming that.
Well, I'm assuming that,
yeah. And I think there's a lot to come out at ITV and a lot of shaking up to do. And I
Okay.
just think it's... I'm just trying to make this story more exciting.
I'll tell you what, but about, you say the shenanigans and all that. The problem is, and it's where part of me feels a little bit sorry for the This Morning team, is as you well know, behind every show and every TV, but especially when the ones that are really, really pally, it's not like that in real life, is it? Very rarely. There's always something going on.
What usually happens, in my experience, in 35 years in BBC Radio particularly, I was paired up with so many different men, professionally. and some of them, you genuinely loved each other. You know, you respected each other, you got on, you chose to socialise, your families went on holiday together, you were generous with each other in the studio, and some... you just had absolutely nothing in common at all. And when there was a report clip on or a record, if it was a music show, you'd just sit there like this. And then, there you go, they were all the way to #1 and a big cheesy fixed smile.
You always got on with Bruno, didn't you?
Yeah, me and Bruno. Well, that's why that show worked and why people still talk about it. And we're still getting asked to do radio shows.
Yeah.
But we don't want to be, like, tied to a weekly thing anymore.
No brokes.
Because we're getting on a bit. But why that worked, because it was genuine, definitely.
Yeah,
But when it's not genuine, as you know, it can be the biggest strain.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah.
Well, I've never experienced a genuine on-air relationship yet.
Oh, thank you. Ellie, you must be so flattered.
No.
It's awful every day, isn't it?
Awful every day. It's a trauma.
Every shift.
Liz, thank you very much indeed. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.
Talking of on-air relationships,
oh, here
it's
we
an
go.
empty seat. Are we getting somebody else for the next one?
Yes, David Mellor might pop in. So there you go.
Yeah.
We shall see. At 6:46. Now, Russian diamond imports into the UK are going to be banned as part of a new wave of sanctions against Russia. Announcing the measures during his trip to Japan, the PM said the ban includes Russian-origin copper, aluminium and nickel.
Counting has begun for the Northern Ireland local elections. The polls closed last night with more than 400 council seats up for grabs across 11 councils. It's the first electoral test for the parties since last year's Assembly elections.
And a new once-a-week obesity jab can help people lose significant amounts of body fat, according to a new study. It's sold under the brand name Manjaro and is currently approved by UK regulators for type 2 diabetes. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence is seeing whether the drug would be a good use of NHS funds before approving it for obesity use.
Sewage was dumped in Scottish seas for more than 113,000 hours last year. That's according to the Marine Conservation Society, which called on the Scottish Government to set spill reduction targets and monitor all storm overflow discharges. Marianne and Murray have been in touch with us this morning and they say, we share your anniversary, Stephen.
Oh.
We are celebrating 33 glorious years of marriage today. We're going out for dinner at a Thai restaurant tonight.
I shall think of you, Marianne and Murray.
Happy
well done,
anniversary.
33 years.
It's amazing.
That's brilliant. Love it.
What restaurant are you going to tonight?
We're going to an Italian.
Italian.
So Italian and Thai between the four of us, Marianne and Murray. There you go.
Oh, well, lovely. Well, if you're celebrating a wedding anniversary today, happy
like
anniversary
Harry and
to you.
Meghan.
Like Harry and Meghan, 5 years. On the Telegraph, actually, 5 years on, is it happily ever after? They called it an eventful marriage. That's in the Telegraph today.
Yeah.
But if you are celebrating a wedding anniversary today, happy anniversary. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely time. And on a disability payment, £150, isn't it, going to disabled people to help with the cost of living? Sheila says, Ellie, thank you for remembering and mentioning the difficulties that disabled people have. Most people do not realise it, and sometimes that makes the situation worse.
Yeah. It'll be borne in mind, I think. Now, let's bring some really positive news this morning because scientists have found a way to tackle one of the deadliest cancer tumours by... It doesn't sound very technical, does it? But they block its energy supply.
Well, pancreatic cancer currently has the highest death rate in England, killing 9 in 10 patients within 5 years.
Yeah, but developing drugs to starve them of their fuel source could improve treatment and hopefully boost survival?
Well, let's speak to oncologist Professor Carol Sikora, who can tell us more. Good morning to you, Carol. Really, really good to see you this morning. So we were having a discussion in the newsroom this morning about even the fact that cancer has to feed off something. You don't think of it that way, but it needs an energy source, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and cancer cells are very clever. They can use all sorts of things. It's like a car that can switch between diesel and petrol and so on. And the key to treating cancer is to find something that selectively kills the cancer but leaves normal cells fine. And that's been the challenge throughout my whole career. It's getting better all the time. The drugs we have for chemotherapy are much better than when I started. But the interesting thing here in this, which is a British discovery in the Institute of Cancer Research in London, is that pancreas cells indeed do use alternative sources of fuel when they become cancerous. And therefore, it's a great target to develop new drugs for them.
It is part of the confusion here. We're talking about a fuel source for pancreatic cancerous cells. Do different parts of the body use different things then? Are all cancers totally different?
That's right. And the technology that was used for these experiments in the Institute of Cancer Research can be applied to other things, breast, colon, and so on. So you can start finding the subtle differences between cancer cells, how they feed, how they find alternatives to sugar. Basically, as cancers grow, wherever they are in the body, they outgrow their blood supply. So they can't get sugar. They can't get the normal things the cells get to feed. And so they look at alternative things. And they're very clever at changing in the environment. They evolve. So this discovery suggests that if you keep looking, you will be able to find new mechanisms to discriminate cancer cells from normal cells and therefore have more success in treatment.
This is really optimistic news, isn't it? Especially because pancreatic cancer does have such a bleak prognosis.
It does. The only thing is that it's going to take time. It's going to be 5 years, unfortunately, at least before a drug comes. Often it takes more to get a drug. I mean, some take 10 years. And this isn't a clinical study. It's not done in patients. There's no point people, sadly, with spread of pancreatic cancer, phoning them up and saying, give me the drug. It's not at that stage. But it just suggests a whole new avenue to explore, which in 5 years' time will give us the drugs we need to selectively kill pancreatic and perhaps other cancers.
I know it's a difficult one. I mean, human testing, is that stage 2 or stage 3 testing or something? Obviously, it has to be carried out. With something like pancreatic cancer, if the outlook is so bleak, is there a willingness of some patients to say, well, let me try it, test it out on me, because what have I got to lose?
Absolutely. There's no doubt people who are in the situation, they don't want to wait 5 years. Just use me as a guinea pig, and they ask you to go on clinical trials. There's a lot of bureaucracy and regulation about trials and consent and so on, but people are desperate. And, I've had patients that have travelled round to the US and so on, and desperate to try and get this treatment at any point. I mean, it's a real balance. I mean, the press releases come out from the cancer charities heralding breakthroughs that you can't really access at the moment. Is that ethical? It probably is. It's truthful information. The scientific details were published in a scientific journal, Nature, on Thursday this week, and that's why they issued a press release. But it does disturb patients, and I've had people that are really disturbed. That they know there may be something, not here yet, come back in 5 years. They haven't got 5 years to come back in. And that's really difficult handling.
So do you think there's a real argument there for trying to keep these things under wraps, sort of, until there is a treatment available?
You're right. Should we do that? The trouble is, if you read the press release, it's very carefully worded. It's not overblowing the case. And it is exciting in a scientific viewpoint. It's not at the stage where it's exciting clinically. People with families, someone may have pancreatic cancer. It's going to be of no value to them now. It is going to take years before it comes there. And everything's like that in the cancer business. There's no doubt. It takes a long time to get a drug or a new type of treatment through to be effective in patients. Should we hide them? I think it's better to be open. We're sort of adult conversation about cancer now, unlike when I started, when we didn't tell anybody they had cancer. I think it's reasonable to put this out in a responsible way as it's been done.
And just very briefly, surely this will give a boost to scientists for the hope of finding a cure for other types of cancers.
That's right. This is pancreatic cancer because that was the disease studied. But the principle is the same for everything. It may be a different chemical. This was uridine. The cancer cells break down and make sugar out of. There'll be other ones we can find. So this whole metabolic approach to cancer, looking at what cancer cells eat and how they grow, seems a reasonable way forward for the future.
OK, Carol Sikora, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Now, stay with us because we're going to be asking whether Rishi Sunak really can win the next general election. It's what he's saying. It's on the front page of the Express today. He says he's going to be PM for years to come. We'll be talking about that next. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. A fine start for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Colder, yes, but brighter compared with recent mornings. Cloudier further south and some showers about first thing. Outbreaks of mostly light rain at this stage associated with the cold front which is pushing south. However, into the afternoon, as temperatures rise, that cold front likely to become a bit more lively. Some heavy downpours starting to develop. As early afternoon, I think, we're going to see those showers developing across the Midlands into eastern England. The cloud breaks up and it starts to turn warmer as well, but that will help to fuel some of these downpours. We could even see the odd thunderstorm break out across central southern England, southwest England, the Midlands, for example. There'll be hit and miss in between, some brighter spells, highs of 19 to 20 Celsius. A brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, compared with recent days. There will be an additional amount of cloud by the afternoon, but it's going to stay largely dry until the evening, and that's when the next weather front starts to move into the far northwest, bringing some outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle. Further south, the showers do die away into the evening, and we'll see clear spells developing overnight. A cool night in places, actually, with temperatures dipping in some sheltered spots down towards the low single figures, so a touch of grass frost possible, say through central parts of England into the north of England. But otherwise, plenty of bright skies on Saturday, and apart from some low cloud lingering around the North Sea coast, for many, it's a day of warm, sunny spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland, less bright, I think, compared with today. There'll be a bit more cloud around. There'll be these outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle, but some signs of brightness into the afternoon, especially towards the northwest for a time. Then Sunday's a very similar day. Warm, sunny spells developing in England and Wales after a cool start. Scotland and Northern Ireland, if anything, see more cloud and lower cloud and some outbreaks of rain and drizzle.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Very nearly 7 o'clock on Friday, the 19th of May. Today, Rishi Sunak backs himself for victory. The PM has said he will win the next election and continue to deliver for the British people. Well, the UK has unleashed a swathe of new sanctions against Russia. The rules will see an end to Russian diamonds, nickel and copper arriving on our shores.
The count begins in Northern Ireland. Over 450 council seats will be up for grabs as Sinn Féin look to overtake the DUP as the largest party in the region. And could you be replaced by a computer? Well, BT have announced that 10,000 jobs will be cut and artificial intelligence programmes could be used to fulfil their duties.
Good morning, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
There's this whole AI thing, and I can understand if you work for BT because they're replacing people with these computer programs. I can understand the concern. I really can. But I think the problem with it is it's sending people into this absolute panic about AI. If you notice, it's the papers and things pick up on something, and then they just go for it. And the AI stories constantly at the minute.
Totally freaking people out, isn't it? I forgot to talk about it.
Just next look at AI.
Oh, is it? Robert Fox is here, as you can tell.
Sorry, we're on air.
No. Oh, no, sorry. You didn't realise we're on air? Yeah. Robert Fox, you're a pro. Anyway, but I just think it's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. We have stories every weekend about them now, don't we? Really do. Lots of people getting in touch on eggs and food prices. Just had an egg farmer on in the 6 o'clock hour saying he thinks there's going to be a shortage of eggs for the next year to do with bird flu and energy prices, things like that. Chris in Wiltshire says the food prices are rising due to greed. Same at the petrol pump. Our government is sitting back and does nothing.
Oh, quite what you can do, I don't know. James says there's not a shortage of eggs, but farmers are being held to ransom over prices from supermarkets. Well, there is a sort of shortage because a lot of farmers are shutting down, aren't they? And just say we can't afford the feed. It's the feed which is very, very, very expensive. But Andrew, on a lighter note, says, I like egg Benedict for breakfast.
Yeah, we're saying, how do you like your eggs in the morning? We like scrambled over here.
I like mine with a kiss.
Oh.
And Andrew says the first person I kissed was my driving examiner after I passed my test at the 5th attempt. He was quite shocked, but I could not help myself.
Wow.
I suppose he didn't retract your licence at that point. And Ed in Virginia says, after 50 years of marriage, my wife and I are upholding the 5,000-year-old tradition of kissing. Good for you.
Yeah, this is a story in the Mail today.
Keep it alive.
Yeah, kissing's been taking place for almost 5,000 years, according to two historians who are a husband-wife team. They've been looking into it. And Bobby says, first time I kissed a girl was the first time I heard the Beatles.
It was like the first time I heard the Beatles.
Or was like, well, that's a very important word. Like the first time.
Yeah.
Listen to the Beatles. Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Keep it coming in, whether it's on eggs,
kissing,
AI. We talk about it all here, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We even talk about who's going to win the next general election, because we don't know, well, nobody knows, apart from Rishi Sunak, who seems to think that he will win the next general election. He's also ruled out any coalition with another party, including the former allies, the DUP.
Yes, Mr Sunak has been speaking at the G7 in Japan, where he's also unveiled new sanctions against Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Let's talk to Defence Editor of The Standard, Robert Fox.
Many apologies.
Oh, it doesn't matter, Robert. It's live TV. It's what we like. Everyone chip in. Look, in terms of what is happening at the G7... all this talk about these new sanctions against Russian diamonds, Russian copper, Russian nickel, Russian aluminium, it make a difference?
Not that much of a difference in what they want Mr Sunak to actually make up his mind about is F-16 aircraft.
Yeah.
Because he seemed to be part of what is known as, can you believe it, the Flight Club, not the Fight Club, led by the Dutch, the Norwegians. They got F-16s. They could produce about 60 or 70 between them, and they have experience at maintaining them. Sunak seemed to support this and gave the class weapon that really goes with the F-16, namely Storm Shadow.
Yeah.
By the way, which has been revealed, has been in action already, very effectively.
Oh, really?
Very effectively. Yeah, it slipped out of a Ben Wallace presser yesterday. And he was, I'm not going to tell you what it hit or what it did. We started using them. They work, as we know. And I do think this G7 meeting actually will be very fruitful, but they cannot avoid Ukraine. Ukraine comes up to the top of the agenda, so it's not a surprise that Zelensky is there, because Vladimir Zelensky's main game is just to keep it in the world headlines at the moment as it goes into a crucial stage. He'll brief them about the offensive. It's when is the offensive not an offensive? It's a rolling sense of initiatives. And he says, guys and ladies, I want you to play your part on the world stage, because they are looking for a path to peace.
What will he want to see, Zelensky this is, from the G7 leaders this week?
He wants a reconstruction package. Already they're talking about that because the economy is shot. He wants support. He wants continuing support. As somebody very experienced, retired British diplomat put it to me the other day, it's like going into a jumble sale. We'll have a bit of a tank here, a Leopard there, and an Abrams there. And it has been quite incoherent. A lot of stuff going in. Kissinger comes off the fence and says, you should get Ukraine into NATO right away. And you think, wouldn't that be provocative? He said, you are now facing the most overarmed, but in terms of leadership, inexperienced country in the whole of Europe. You cannot turn Ukraine into a massive arms dump, which is known as the Israeli solution, in the way that the United States doesn't tie Israel into huge alliances, but fills them full of arms. That's not possible in Europe, and I really follow Dr. Kinger's argument there.
I just noticed in the...
Economist.
Is it The Economist, right?
And 4 pages, well worth it.
But the sort of subhead there is how to prevent a third world war. Well, the argument about bringing NATO into Ukraine into NATO, and therefore NATO troops into Ukraine, was that it could trigger a third world war.
No, Russia isn't going to. It's in such a state, it's not going to trigger the Third World War. Henry Kissinger's Third World War, and he is, I said, one of 2 books. One is on AI, curiously, that he's planning already at 100 at the end of next week. But the other is, and the other thing is that he is saying that the way America and China are boxing themselves in diplomatically, this is an old-style diplomat talking, they're going down the greased rails to almost inevitable confrontation, and that would be a world war. And I think he very much wants that kind of thing, the defusing, discussed at G7. The other thing he predicts, but not here, he's on record, in some interviews he's given in the State, he thinks Japan will go nuclear. One thing that's very interesting for Rishi Sunak is how crucial Japan is as an ally for the UK now, for developing defence industries and so on. And I would just say that if he's thinking of re-election, he's got to take defence and security as a component of both domestic and foreign policy. He, Sunak, much more seriously than he is at the moment. It's got to be there in the manifesto. You can't run down the services in this way, give a little bit of money there and a little bit of there. They're needed.
But meanwhile, whilst the G7 is taking place this week, we've got missile attacks. They're continuing in Ukraine and at high speed, aren't they?
And they're dealing with them more or less. And we're coming to the situation where we were at nearly a year ago when they really started drawing. Do you remember the Iranian drones came in? That's when the infrastructure, by that we mean power, water, sewage, it very nearly collapsed, I understand. We're not quite at that state again, but you're quite right. It's the missile war that's so important. And I think, slowly, they're getting to supplying the F-16. It's interesting, it's that one capable aircraft that they really need. They can't mount a really serious offensive to regain great chunks of territory unless they have that aircraft with the cover it gives to ground forces. I'm sorry, you could have all the missiles in the world. We're not quite there yet. But back to AI, the real problem that's coming up on the battlefield is the autonomous weapons system, killer robots. And they are really, really worried about somebody developing that within the next month, because the development of weaponry in Ukraine is fantastic. It's a fantastic pace.
Yeah, I mean, so that's all ties then back into the whole AI thing and everything else, doesn't it?
I always bring you. I'm always very cheerful when I come in and talk to you on a Friday or wherever.
No,
and I interrupt your programme.
It doesn't matter. You see, it's nice that you didn't realise we were on air because we were so chatty.
Yes, you're really good. You are really good.
That's why we have you back, Robert. Good to see you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Robert.
very much
Thank
indeed.
you very much. Now the time is 7:09. Let's bring you up to speed with some other stories that are taking place today.
And the brother of Philip Schofield will be sentenced for child sex offences this morning. 54-year-old Timothy Schofield was convicted of 11 sexual offences involving a child between 2016 and 2019.
Promoting lower-calorie takeaways in delivery apps could help to tackle obesity. That's according to 3 new studies that found that calorie labels played a major role in reducing the overall calorie content of the orders. They say modifying food delivery apps to include lower-calorie options could help people live healthier lifestyles.
And more than 6 million disabled people will get a one-off payment of £150 from the end of June. The government says they recognise the extra cost disabled people face. That comes out of care and mobility needs. Pensioners will also get £300 later this year. I'm not convinced by this. Well, the food app business. I'm sort of... The other thing, you need to adjust the apps to... I mean, just putting different stuff on the menu, isn't it? Just putting healthier stuff on the menu.
Yeah, or maybe perhaps nearer the top of the app.
Oh, maybe.
So it's more visual.
I do think putting calories on makes a difference.
It does. I actually do. I don't like seeing them on menus.
No, I don't.
But it does make me more aware, and I would change my choice.
Yeah, I've done that.
Based on calories.
I've done that. It's when you horrifically see that it's, like 1,000 calories.
Quite shocking, isn't it?
I saw that once for a portion of chips.
And I know where that was, yes. Quite shocking, isn't it, when you see that on the menu? You think, oh, wait, I won't have that as a side dish, actually.
No.
Have a salad instead.
The chips yeah, but then it's not as nice, is it?
No.
Basically.
That's the thing in life. The nice things...
They're bad for you.
Generally not very good for you, are they?
No, they're not. Mind you, we should just be extremely rich, then we could eat what we like and afford the liposuction to have it all sucked out
And the personal trainers and the rest.
Yes, yeah.
Perhaps that would happen if we were on the Sunday Times rich list. We're not, unfortunately, but...
No, but no surprise. The Hinduja brothers topped it again, the richest people in the UK. But they've gone up 6.5 billion. So they're now at 35 billion quid. There you go. So it's the biggest amount of money on the list ever.
Wow, absolutely incredible wealth. Let's speak now to... Who are we speaking to? John Ulrich from the Sunday Times Rich List. Really, really good to see you this morning, John. So let's start at the very top of this list, shall we, with the Hinduja brothers. How are they quite so wealthy? It's incredible, isn't it? £35 billion, up £6.5 billion from last year.
Yes, they've made a lot of money over the past 12 months, as a lot of people have. A lot of people have suffered, a lot of people have done well. They've done well. They have a huge global trading conglomerate. The trade is up this year. Their trading conglomerate is worth about $28.5 billion. If you add their private assets, their family wealth goes up to about $35 billion.
Wow, it just seems unbelievable, doesn't it? I tell you what, it's not all good news, though, is it? Because a lot of people have lost money. I'm intrigued by the Prime Minister and his wife, who we keep going on about how rich they are. They're losing have lost about £500,000 a day, according to your list. What's going on?
They have most of their wealth through her holdings in her father's Indian-based tech company, Infosys. And because of the global banking crisis and the general slowdown in the world economy, banks and so on have been using fewer services from Infosys. Infosys value has gone down, the value of stake has gone down, and overall the family's wealth has gone down because of that.
Have you found that the cost of living has bitten billionaires as well as us everyday people?
Absolutely. The funny thing about this year's list is actually the things that affect all of us have actually really affected the super rich. So things like inflation, rising energy costs, these 20% falls in global stock markets, they've all hit lots and lots of rich people, just as they've hit lots and lots of not so rich people. One of the best examples of this is Sir Richard Branson, whose wealth has almost halved in the past 12 months because of various stock market fluctuations. And I should say, probably should get out our small violins at this point, because he's down to his last 2.4 billion, so we don't need to worry too much. But he is a very good example of someone who's been hit by really, really strong moves, negative moves in global markets.
It's interesting, though, because all of this, we view it in the wrong way, don't we, as humble peasants without billions of pounds in the bank, because this isn't cash value, is it? This isn't the money they've got stuffed under the mattress or in the savings account. This is, you know, if they're not. It's all about what they've got invested and the structure of the businesses and all the rest of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that, and it's also private assets. I mean, if you look at the Hindujas, for example, one of the things you'll see soon is the opening of the Old War Office on Whitehall, which is going to be this fantastic Raffles hotel. Now, they bought that building a few years ago for £350 million, spent £900 million doing it up. So a lot of money, a lot of their own cash actually in that. And now they're going to open it and it's going to be an asset for them. So, yeah, an awful lot of it is actually, I mean, it's not silly, you know, you can't go to the you know, that thing at the cash point where, so, you know, do you want to check your balance? And it says 35 billion, it doesn't fit on the screen. You know, there are an awful lot of people who actually will have a lot of money tied up in all sorts of different private assets and in the companies.
What's your biggest takeaway from the list? I mean, it's absolutely fascinating to be one of the coordinators, one of the co-writers of this list, and be able to see the patterns emerging from it. But in terms of wealth in this country, where does it mainly come from? Is it tech? Is it entertainment? Is it sports? Or is it family wealth?
It's everything, but it changes all the time. So if you look back when we started doing it in 1989, it was mainly kind of toffs, aristos, landowners, that kind of thing. Very few people of colour, very few women. And then over the years, through the Thatcher Revolution and the Blair Revolution and the tech revolutions and the banking deregulation in the city and all this kind of thing, it's become much more meritocratic. So most people have made their own money. They've made it in trading. They've made it in tech. They've made it in banking. There's many more people of colour. There's many more women. It's much more diverse. So the big shift is away from essentially inherited money to money you've made yourself. And I think a lot of people think that speaks well of Britain. I mean, we've changed pretty dramatically in the 35 odd years we've been doing this list, from being a country of essentially old money to the country of new money. And most people look at new money and think, well, look, if you've earned it, great. Pay your taxes, of course. But if you've earned it, great. And that increases the wealth for everybody.
Well, let's hope it trickles down to us. John, it's really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, John. We need to invent something. I told you, we need to be entrepreneurs.
We do. Footballers.
Or a footballer.
I mean, look, Gareth Bale, 70 million. Raheem Sterling, 61. Harry Kane, 51. Anthony Joshua, going to be about 150 million quid. Rory McIlroy's got 200. Oh, that'd be nice.
So maybe sports. Are you any good at sports?
No.
Oh, well.
No.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen for us then, unfortunately.
What I don't understand with any of these people, even poor old Harry Kane on his measly £51 million, is that why would you just not say, well, I'm not doing this anymore?
Enough's enough, yeah. You don't need to go to work, do you?
No.
And what do you do with all that money?
Oh, I don't know.
There's too much to spend.
Have a lovely time.
Yeah, I bet you would, yeah. Property. But then even then you'd run out, wouldn't you? What you could buy with 51 mil.
Well, you just buy yourself something really, really lovely, drive really lovely cars to your various houses.
Yeah. What would you, if you had, let's take Harry Kane, £51 million in the bank, what would you spend it on? If you were on the Sunday Times rich list, how would you be spending your money? Let us know this morning. gbnews@gbnews.uk. I'd be buying houses and going on holiday.
Yeah.
And probably not working.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't. That means you wouldn't have to work from home either. You know, of course, it's becoming very popular, sort of. But is it morally right? Not according to Elon Musk. Or do you think we should all have more flexibility? We're debating that in just a moment. This is GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is 7:22. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Still to come for you.
What next for Indiana Jones? Harrison Ford and the rest of the film's cast were on the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival last night as it got its big premiere. We're going to be catching up with our showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci just before 8 a.m.
Yes, she's out there.
Yeah, lucky woman.
Thing. And after OVO and Good Energy had to pay out £4 million in compensation, we'll ask what more needs to be done to protect customers, energy customers. That's at 8:10. They'd overcharge people, apparently.
Yeah.
How do you know whether you're being overcharged or not on your lecky? I don't know.
And what can you do about it if you are? We're going to be asking those sorts of questions later, aren't we?
Yeah.
Please do keep in touch this morning. We love hearing from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
We've been asking how you like your eggs in the morning.
Yeah, I've got you all talking about eggs. It's, apparently the egg shortage is going to continue into later on this year. We're speaking to an egg farmer a little bit earlier on. It led us to ask how you like your eggs in the morning. Tina says, we usually have boiled eggs with toast whilst we're away in our camper van.
Oh, we'll boil that with soldiers, I hope.
Yeah, dippy
Hope
eggs
it's
and
soldiers.
Oh.
Carl says scrambled egg with a sausage roll dipped in tomato sauce. Scrambled eggs in it, but we have soy sauce on them. Have you ever done that?
No.
Soy sauce on your scrambled eggs.
Is it good?
Oh. Always did it as kids. I don't know where my mum got the idea from. It's really nice. Goes really
Oh, well,
well.
I have to try that. I have heard a bit of grated cheese in scrambled egg. Have you tried that?
No.
Well, I suppose that's an omelette, isn't it?
Haven't. Adrian says poached eggs every time. I'm not very good at poaching. We did just get my mum had, and I was getting rid of her old poaching pan.
Yeah, they're fun, they
So I
are.
got that, but I haven't used it yet. But, well,
If you have
not
a perfect
successfully.
poached egg, that can be really stunning.
Can it?
Yeah, nice slice of
Stunning.
Can be
She's obsessed with food.
I am. And Fred's been in touch saying the best eggs that him and his daughter have are from a large pen in a lovely but normal-sized garden. We have 7 pet hens and we keep ourselves and our friends supplied with fresh eggs.
Yeah, well, very nice.
Yeah, but I bet they're really, when they're almost orange, they're so fresh. When eggs are so fresh. No?
Orange eggs.
Orange, like really yellow.
Oh, you mean the yolk?
Yes. What
Oh,
else
the
do you think
yolk.
I'm talking
I
about?
thought you meant the shell.
No. Although that was interesting, speaking to the egg farmer earlier, when he switched from brown eggs to white
Eggs.
eggs.
Because they lay more eggs,
They
more
lay more.
hens. But yeah, those what I've never seen in the UK. What you see them on American TV shows when they do eggs, they're always white.
White
anyway.
hens produce much more eggs, yes. You get more egg for your money
Yeah.
if you're an egg farmer. Anyway,
There you go.
every day's a school day. You learn something on breakfast every single day.
You do. Now, this might divide you. Tech mogul Elon Musk has said in a recent interview earlier this week that people who work from home are morally wrong.
Yes, he argued that it was unfair to those who could not work remotely, like us, and has productivity concerns.
I have worked remotely before.
Have you?
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, well, all right, but it got a bit boring in the end. But that was during the pandemic. I didn't have a choice. But is working from home a good thing for some people, or should we all get back to the office?
Well, entrepreneur Piers Linney says he's a big supporter of working from home and believes it promotes more diversity in the workplace. Meanwhile, the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, Charlie Mullins, agrees with Elon Musk and says working from home is for lazy people. Well, there you go. That's what they think. Charlie, let's start with you then, shall we? Why do you think working from home makes people lazy?
Well, I mean, there's many distractions there that they just takes them away from the workplace. But not only is it morally wrong, it's also bad for the economy. It's an unfair system, and we wouldn't want sort of doctors, NHS workers, police, fire working from home. So it's an unfair system, and it's also a mental health problem for them because there's now a lot more sicknesses happening because of working from home where they're not sort of interacting with people, they're not exercising. It's also unfair to other members in the house that, you've got to creep around and, don't go in this room and don't be loud on this. So it's a totally bad system, but the real thing is I think it's unfair and it's damaging the economy and it's sending out the wrong message to future youngsters that have got to get into the workplace.
I mean, that's the thing, Piers, isn't it? That it's almost been painted as a bit of a utopia by some people and some companies. But as Charlie points out, there are plenty of pitfalls.
Well, I don't have to disagree with Charlie, but I think it's finding a balance, isn't it? So I work with some very large companies, got 30,000 employees. I've done a lot of research on this and we've actually seen the impact of it. And it's finding a balance. So number one is, and Charlie's right to some extent, people working from home, if you force them to work from home almost, because you don't want to have an office, it costs money, then sometimes they might have the right environment. So you've got to think about that. But overall, having that flexibility, you've got remote working, hybrid working, asynchronous working, where do you work, how do you work, and when do you work together? And what it does do, though, means that your talent pool now, in an economy where we're struggling to find talent, means that it expands your talent pool. What Elon Musk said about, factory workers is something that is correct. But for knowledge workers, you want to be able to access talent wherever it is. We've got to find a balance. And I agree, I was a lawyer, so, training as a solicitor back in the day, you couldn't have done that remotely. You'd have to be in the office and meet people. And some of that skill set you pick up is by osmosis. You've got to be around people and understand it. So, a lot of companies is it 2 days a week, 3 days a week? I think making it a policy that you have to work from home, if you haven't got the right environment, is probably swinging it too far in the other direction.
Charlie, with all of this, I mean, there is a benefit, isn't there? I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You're a hugely successful businessman. There is an advantage, isn't it, to someone who may live, I don't know, in Northumbria, being able to say, well, my place of work is actually in London. I can do it remotely, and people like you, Charlie, can then get the best talent.
Yeah, well, obviously for some people it must be, but we're going back. The real story is it morally correct? Is it fair? Is it good for the economy? Is it good for mental health? And many other reasons. I think you can get onto somebody at home. They can't give you the information. They can't put the phone down, go and ask another department. So it's delaying things, and that's quite proven that things are being delayed. And then I say you've got all the distractions that are out there, and. I think it's just, for me, it's just another way of having work-shy, lazy people that are not prepared to come into the office. If they're going to work from home, I believe that there should be a two-tier wage system, 50% less if you're working from home. The ones that are prepared to come into work, let's pay them double the money. And I think you'll find that the working from home thing will go out the window completely.
Piers, what do you say to that? Are you work-shy and lazy if you work from home? Should you be on 50% less pay?
No, what's quite interesting is I was talking to a lady who she was working from home during COVID, and she continued to do that. And her partner were saving £2,000 a year each on a season ticket. So, that's a good thing potentially. But I think that it's important that we understand that whether someone sat next to you or in another room in a building, on another floor, technology now means that doesn't really matter. But I think you have to find a balance that fits with your company culture. But I think that it's a mistake to try and pull this back into people having to work in offices, because in some cases that's a mental health issue. Who wants to spend 1.5 hours, 2 hours a day sat in traffic or on a train where you can't get a seat? And what if you're disabled? This gives you a huge opportunity to work for people where you couldn't work for previously.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid point. I mean, you both raised valid points. Just very briefly, Piers, though, on this issue of the morality of it all, there is a danger, isn't there, becoming a bit of a two-tier society, or more of a two-tier society, if those who are seen to do the sort of white-collar jobs could all work from home and save money on transport and all the rest of it, and blue-collar workers, well, they end up doing all the running about and becoming second-class, in effect.
Well, depends how you look at it. I mean, we've always lived in, sadly, a two-tier society, but if you're a knowledge worker, the machines are coming for you a lot faster than somebody working in a factory currently. If you're a knowledge worker and working in the information economy, you're being chased by AI and technology like that. Whereas if you're a manual worker, for example, you've got to do it with your hands or talk to customers, technology is a bit further away. So you can look at it that way, that people that can work from home are the ones in most threat from new tech.
Oh, well, no, it's an interesting perspective, which left me very much sitting on the fence. Either way, I can tell you both. Charlie, Piers, really good to see you both this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you will definitely have an opinion on that. Do you think you are lazy and work shy if you work from home, or perhaps you're more efficient and you're saving money on your season ticket? Do let us know what you think. Where do you sit on that side of the debate? gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Meanwhile, with all that talk about AI, well, is the rise of AI going to really pose a threat to your job? We'll explore that further. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people. I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:36, good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And it's time for a look through the papers for you now. And the Express has captured Rishi Sunak and his wife touching down in Hiroshima yesterday ahead of the G7 summit. He's got a lovely Union Jack umbrella that Stephen really likes.
I really like I do really like it. It's nice to be proud.
Yeah.
It's Saturday night taken away, according to The Sun, as Ant and Dec stepped down. Well, not yet. The Saturday night takeaway, they're having a break, but not until 2025.
Yeah.
So we've got another year.
Still got a while to go, haven't we? In the Mail, some Hollywood glamour from the Cannes Film Festival. Phoebe Waller-Bridge has been posing in a black gown. Stephen would say it's just a black dress, but it's a fishtail.
It's a fishtail.
Strappy black silk
dull.
number with black gloves, and she looks wonderful.
Oh, it's dull. She's in the new Indiana Jones, isn't she?
Yeah, and our very own Stephanie Tetch is in Cannes because she just lives the best life, doesn't she?
She does.
That one. And we're going to be catching up with her about the new Indiana Jones film and more.
Yes. The Princess of Wales has stepped out to visit a children's mental health charity in an emerald green dress. That's pictured in the Mirror this morning.
And that we can agree, she does look wonderful, doesn't she?
When does she not?
Exactly.
She must wake up looking fabulous.
I'm sure she does, yes.
And very rich as well. Yes. The royals are rich. We've asked you about what you would do if you were a millionaire. We'll run through those in a little bit after we've talked through the papers with our resident millionaires, Liz Kershaw and David Mellor. Good morning to you. Thanks, David, for jumping in. Let's start with you. Should we be looking at the Times? And they've got a minute-by-minute description of the car chase in New York for Harry.
Yes, relentless pursuit was what Harry or someone on Harry's behalf said. It doesn't look that way from the Times reconstruction. Look, I mean, I'm obviously on both sides of the fence with this. I had my time when I was of interest to
hold on a minute,
We're
David.
being told your microphone isn't on.
Here we go. Where is it?
At least you can tell it's live. There you go.
It's there. It's because it's stuffed in your trousers and we've lost the aerial. There we
you
go.
don't want to know about things stuffed in my trousers.
There we go. Is that any better? Can you hear him now? Hello, say something, David.
Hi.
Oh, we've got you now. Let me shove it behind you like that.
It's a desperate attempt to silence me, but I won't.
It is. No, you keep going.
You carry on, David.
There I was. Now, look.
You never thought that, did you, Stephen Dixon? You'd be adjusting the clothing of an undersecretary.
No, don't know.
Age, it's nice to know it still happens. But getting back to serious matters, because I'm an essentially very serious person, this Sussex thing, any of us who've been of interest to the tabloids know only too well how relentless they can be. And it's a form of bullying, you know. I mean, when I had my period of interest to the paparazzi, they would come and hose you down. They weren't ever going to use the photos.
All right, apologies, David. As much as I would not want to stop you during that little segment, we have got a mic issue with both of you two, actually. So it's the viewers. Maybe China or Russia shutting you down. You can't talk, Liz. We can't hear you.
It's that AI bot.
It's the AI.
We're going to look into that.
We're going to try and sort that out for you. In the meantime, let's have a look at this rich list business, right? Because if you were a millionaire, because we look at Sunday Times rich list, and lots of people very, very, very rich. Kev says, I can't help thinking that money always seems to bring out the worst in people. Well, I think that can be very true, actually.
Doesn't it say money is the root of all evil?
Yeah, and I think it tends to be, I hate to say it, but it's like when, I'm sure lots of lovely people win the lottery, but I think if you're not used to a lot of money and suddenly you're a multi-millionaire, it can send you a little bit bonkers.
It can, yeah.
Send me bonkers.
Well, we were asking if you were on the Sunday Times rich list, 51 million like Harry Kane, what would you spend it on? Lots of you getting in touch. Matisse has been in touch saying, if I had that kind of money, I'd be buying land to rewild Britain.
You see,
it's a bit different, isn't it?
That's all very worthy. John, more with John. I would buy an island and get away from this mad world of humans. I can see the appeal of that.
Julian says he won't be staying in broken Britain with its miserable weather.
Andy would buy himself a new house, a new car, pay off the kids' mortgages and then reinvest the rest. I love going to work, and although I'm looking forward to retirement in 2029, so not long to go. Probably still keep some for holidays and things as well. Still keep some, about 51 million.
I think you'll be all right for a few holidays out of that. And Keith says, if I had 51 million, I would share it among all my children and grandchildren, plus I'd have a nice Chinese takeaway.
Yes.
I think it could probably stretch that far.
I think so. Now, hopefully we've had a battery change and everyone's up and running. David Mellor.
OK, so we were talking about the Sussexes.
Yes, we were.
And I was saying that any of us who've had been the subject of interest to the paparazzi, it's a horrible experience. And a lot of the time they hose you down without intending ever to use the photos. What on earth are they doing, for instance, wanting to see where they had dinner? Who really cares about where they have dinner? But that having been said, there is an extraordinary willingness from this on the part of the Sussexes to actually exaggerate, relentless pursuit over 2 hours. I mean, I've been to Manhattan quite a lot. I think if you can get above 5 miles an hour, you're doing brilliantly. And I think that if the Sussexes want privacy, they don't have to go out to this, frankly, rather spurious awards ceremony, instead of which they want it all ways and both ways. And essentially, I think there's an element of exaggeration because they know accusing the paparazzi of doing this, that and the other will make a headline. And there they are. It's a headline.
Yes, near catastrophic.
I mean, come on,
Yeah, no.
I mean, I know about catastrophes of having been in politics. This isn't a catastrophe.
No. Maybe unpleasant, but, yeah, there's a big difference between the two. Liz, rocketing property prices, are they coming to an end?
So this article's claiming... Can I just quickly say, I had a really unique experience in Manhattan. There was Storm Sandy in 2012, and everybody was told to evacuate, and me and my friend didn't. We just bunkered down in a 34th floor apartment, and we went out in the car, call it irresponsible, but it was like the film set, The Day After Tomorrow or whatever, and we could see right down 10th Avenue and beyond, and we drove up and down the deserted
How you didn't get arrested, I don't think.
It was amazing. Never will that happen to me again. Anyway, so this article is claiming the era of massive house price rises is coming to an end because, and this ties in with a friend, the Pimlico plumber, and his chat about working from home, because people are working from home and they can now choose to live anywhere, and it takes the pressure off previous property hotspots. Well, first of all, I don't believe that, because it's about supply and demand.
Yeah.
And if it's true that there are, possibly 1 million more people in Britain than 12 months ago when the figures are confirmed, everybody needs a roof over their heads.
Yeah.
And I don't see any evidence of either rents or house prices coming down. But the thing why I picked this is really interesting. A poll published yesterday suggests that Britain is facing a generational divide over the green belt.
Yeah.
The majority of young people favour relaxing restrictions to allow more development on green belt. So that idea is supported by a higher percentage than baby boomers. I find that astounding. I thought it was the kids of today that were saying, oh, save the planet.
Yeah.
Let's rewild, as somebody just said.
They'd live to regret it if they got rid of the green belt.
Do you think... I'm not being patronising, but I think if I said to my son in his 20s, shall we protect the green belt, he wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Once it's built on, it's gone, isn't it?
That is, yeah,
well,
it's gone for
this
good.
leads on very nicely to our next story in the Telegraph, David, which is levels of eco-anxiety. Apparently it's rising in the young.
Yes.
Unless you want a house.
This is Fraser Nelson with his centre-page comment. I mean, essentially what his point is that eco-anxiety has taken off into areas that can no longer be justified by any rational analysis of what's happening. And the suggestion, what he's saying, is that while levels of eco-anxiety are rising among the young, the planet's future is brighter than many think. I always suspect there's an element of exaggeration in all of this, but it's very hard, of course, to know. But one of the things that I think there needs to be is a much more rational approach to this. I think that as it has become a major political issue, so it has become extremely difficult to actually inject an element of rationality, because
it's emotive, isn't it? And I have to say,
Yes.
Greta Thunberg, I'm sure she makes some excellent points at times, but all this "you've destroyed my future, you're killing us all" sort of line is extremely emotive and doesn't seem to help, I don't think.
No, and I mean, one of the things that Fraser Nelson says, amongst many interesting things, because as I've said before, I think that with newspapers, often the news is out of date, but what isn't out of date is the comment, and the comment can be very interesting. He says, getting rich requires more people, so humans remain more of a solution than a problem. This is why climate-related deaths have fallen by about 80% over the course of the past century. Wealthier countries can better prepare for natural disasters. So it's an interesting, thought-provoking point.
In the Telegraph, Liz, we need to not say obesity anymore, apparently. What do we say instead?
Well, this is my pet subject, because...
Because you've lost 10 stone or something, haven't you?
Not 10.
This week?
Yeah. I lost 3 stone. I started 5 years ago and I've stuck to it and I've kept it off. So I'm not saying, do anything I haven't tried myself. I just think we're really... It was reported this week how many billions the NHS is spending on controlling or curing conditions, medical conditions that have been diagnosed. That's not, apart from all the ones that haven't been diagnosed, that are directly to do with carrying around too much fat. And that includes, of course, the big one, type 2 diabetes. Half the people I know are having hip and knee replacements. They're many stone overweight in some cases. They're putting strain on the joints. So what my point is, this article is saying stop calling people obese because that's not helpful and it's upsetting them. They should be treated as though they've got a disease and they should be given medical help. Well, they are to fight the problems that are resulting from it. And I don't think the state if you're disfiguring yourself and causing yourself health issues by eating too much, all right, I'll ask the question instead: should the state be mopping up the mess, paying for it? Like, if you didn't look after your car properly, and you break down, does the government Department of Transport send out somebody to get you on the road again? No, it's personal responsibility, and I just refuse. I've eaten more than I needed, and I got fat. So I'm not saying, hey, I'm a saint, but I'm just saying when I realised what I'd done. Because you've got to be honest with yourself. You sort of.
Yeah, but it is. It's about honesty, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Once you confront it and you're honest about it, then it's your decision. Do I do something about it?
Oh.
It's not easy. It takes willpower. It takes discipline. But would you rather lose the weight, or would you rather end up on permanent medication, maybe losing a foot, as one of my relatives did because of diabetes, having to have your joints replaced?
Well, you raise a lot of very good points. Whether you've got a view on that or not, GBviews, gbnews.uk. We need to leave it there, sadly.
Oh, we can go and have a bacon butty now.
You can go and have a bacon butty now, fill your boots, sod the diet. Good to see you both
Liz,
this
David,
morning.
thank you very much. Now, calling all Indiana Jones fans, the much-awaited fifth and final instalment of the sequel, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, will be released next month.
Yes, Harrison Ford races against the clock to rescue a famous dial with powers to change the course of history. Here's what...
I'm retiring.
Well, in that case, what are we drinking?
Same for the goddaughter.
Dad told me you found something on a train during the war. A dial that could change the course of history.
Why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy? Don't move.
We need to get out of here. Stop! Sorry.
Dr. Jones, get him.
Oh, exciting,
Looks good, doesn't it?
Premiered at Cannes last night. Stephanie Tecci is there. Good morning, Steph. How are you?
Even in LA.
Look, I say the first thing that struck me watching that, apart from the fact it looks very good, is the fact there's all these scenes where Harrison Ford looks 40 years younger.
That is the big selling point of this movie, Stephen. The director, James Mangold, this is the first film out of the franchise that hasn't been directed by Steven Spielberg. And James Mangold has said they've used incredible technology, expensive technology as well, to make Harrison Ford look many decades younger, like we're spanning like almost 40 years younger. And Harrison Ford's always been impressed by this new technology. And I think fans will be quite interested how he can manage to time hop back in time, and he looks like the Indiana Jones from 1981 when he first hit our screens as Indy.
Oh, he looks incredible. And what did you make of the film, Stephanie?
Oh my gosh, I loved it. I definitely think it's going to be a blockbuster hit. And it's a grand finale towards an amazing franchise. Harrison has said this is the last time he's going to be playing Indiana Jones. At the moment, there's no more plans to make any more films after this. Disney have said that potentially that they might make a TV series of it. But from what I've seen, it's definitely well fitted for an amazing franchise, which I think will be very hard to replicate.
Well, mind you, you'd be surprised if we did any more. He's 80 now, isn't he?
No, yesterday, Stephen, it was so emotional at the Grand Theatre Lumiere because he was presented with the Palme d'Honneur, which is the highest accolade you can receive at the Cannes Film Festival. And they played like a montage from all his career. And he said a really emotional speech. He said, you know, before you die, they say your life flashes before your eyes. And that's what he felt yesterday, seeing all the amazing work that he's done on his 5-decade-plus career. And obviously, he was joined by his wife, Felicity Flockhart. They're a very private couple. So to have that public display was amazing. But there was some seating drama, guys. The festival organised placed Calista right behind him, which didn't go down too well.
No, I bet it didn't. And I'll tell you what, over here, Stephanie, on all the papers is a certain Phoebe Waller-Bridge looking incredible in a black gown. Stephen's rolling his eyes. He's like, it's just a black dress, nothing to see here. But she looks incredible, doesn't she?
I do love Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I liked her poses on the red carpet. She was definitely playing ball with the paparazzi. I wasn't too fond of the dress, but in terms of her part as as Indiana Jones' goddaughter in the film, she does amazing in it. You know, the critics so far have said she's done an amazing job, and potentially if there is room for a spin-off, I can imagine Phoebe will be involved, whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera.
Oh, I bet. Steph, we've only got 20 seconds left. What's the weather like? Are you having a nice time?
Tell us about Cannes.
Guys, I brought the British weather with me, unfortunately. Before arriving, Cannes hadn't seen rain for 6 months, and as soon as the festival's kicked off, it's been raining, but I'm seeing it as a positive thing. Shower of blessings for the stars and myself.
Oh, there you go. Always looking on the bright side. Steph, thank you. We'll catch you later on.
Enjoy Cannes.
Speak soon.
We're still very jealous, even if it is
everywhere.
raining. She does. Bali last week, now she's in Cannes. It's right for some, isn't it?
Yeah, manages all right, doesn't she?
She does.
This is GB News. We've got more on Rishi Sunak's crackdown on Russian diamonds next.
Hello, a very good morning to you. A fine start for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Colder, yes, but brighter compared with recent mornings. Cloudier further south and some showers about first thing. Outbreaks of mostly light rain at this stage associated with the cold front which is pushing south. However, into the afternoon, as temperatures rise, that cold front likely to become a bit more lively. Some heavy downpours starting to develop. As early as early afternoon, I think, we're going to see those showers developing across the Midlands into eastern England. The cloud breaks up and it starts to turn warmer as well, but that will help to fuel some of these downpours. We could even see the odd thunderstorm break out across central southern England, southwest England, the Midlands, for example. They'll be hit and miss in between some brighter spells, highs of 19 to 20 Celsius. A brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, compared with recent days. There will be an additional amount of cloud by the afternoon, but it's going to stay largely dry until the evening, and that's when the next weather front starts to move into the far northwest, bringing some outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle. Further south, the showers do die away into the evening, and we'll see clear spells developing overnight. A cool night in places, actually, with temperatures dipping in some sheltered spots down towards the low single figures, so a touch of grass frost possible, say through central parts of England into the north of England. But otherwise, plenty of bright skies on Saturday, and apart from some low cloud lingering around the North Sea coast, for many, it's a day of warm, sunny spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland, less bright, I think, compared with today. There'll be a bit more cloud around. There'll be these outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle, but some signs of brightness into the afternoon, especially towards the northwest for a time. Then Sunday's a very similar day. Warm, sunny spells developing in England and Wales after a cool start. Scotland and Northern Ireland, if anything, see more cloud and lower cloud and some outbreaks of rain and drizzle.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Morning to you, it's 8 o'clock on Friday, the 19th of May. Today, Rishi Sunak backs himself for victory. The PM has said he will win the next election and continue to deliver for the British people. Well, the UK has unleashed a swathe of new sanctions against Russia. The rules will see an end to diamonds, nickel and copper arriving on our shores.
The count begins in Northern Ireland. Over 450 council seats will be up for grabs as Sinn Féin look to overtake the DUP as the largest party in the region. And could you be replaced by a computer? Well, BT have announced that 10,000 jobs will be cut and artificial intelligence programmes could be used to fulfil their duties.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. And just to make you aware, because you would have heard me giggle during that, Stephen, during the AI story where we just talked about being replaced by robots, he was doing the robot next to me whilst I'm trying to read the auto cue.
It's the thing to come, isn't it? I'm just going to get replaced.
Dear me, never a dull moment.
We were talking to an egg farmer earlier on. Look at the huge problems that egg farmers have had. But it prompted us to say, how do you like your eggs? Because actually egg consumption is going up 3% year on year in the UK. John in Durham has a genius idea, John. Scrambled eggs on Marmite toast.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Definitely.
No, that's my worst nightmare. Not the one. Sorry, John. Hope you enjoy it, but it's not the one for me.
Steve in Torquay says, get yourself a coddle.
Oh.
Crack in an egg and add whatever you want. Coddle. I've never used
I don't know what a coddle is.
I've heard of a coddle, but I don't know what you do with it.
Oh.
You have to Google that one.
Mm. And Paul says the only shortage is in supermarkets. I get my eggs from a local shop and there's always plenty. And I have heard that. Farm shops and your local little shops. Generally, you'll find eggs.
I mean, I know they are running short in supermarkets, but I've yet to go and not be able to buy some.
Really?
I've always been able to buy
Maybe
eggs.
it depends on where you are in the country.
Maybe.
I've really struggled.
Okay.
But weren't you saying that people buying eggs has gone up considerably in the last year? So
3%.
So people eating
Thanks
more
for
eggs.
listening.
Is that I was listening to you, and I thought, what a great point. Up 3%. And I wonder why that is. Is it a cheap protein in the cost of living crisis?
Well, it used
Just
to be.
because they're yummy?
Used to be cheap protein.
Or maybe it's one of those classics where you want what you can't have. And if there's a shortage, everyone fancies eggs, because we're talking about them all the time. Don't know. But we're eating more of them, that's for sure.
And also, we're going to, in a little bit, we'll go through all your working from home emails because you're split on both sides of the fence. But we also asked what you would do if you were very, very rich, because the Sunday Times Rich List has been published today. But it's out in the paper on Sunday, but they've released it online today. David in Plymouth, he's a good man, says, I'd buy a boat for the RNLI, I'd buy a helicopter for air ambulance, and 2 houses overseas, but still live where I am now. And cruises.
Do you know what? You're a really lovely bunch. Loads of you are saying that you donate to charity, or lots of you want to help animals. Steve says, if I were rich, I'd help those animal charities who depend on hard-working volunteers to wipe out cruelty and neglect. And Christine in Birmingham says she would build veterinary surgeries all around the country and treat all animals for free because animals are so important to people.
And on a sort of similar theme, in a sense, Paula says, I would open and pay for a riding school for disabled adults and children with coffee mornings and afternoons, professional support available for parents and carers.
Oh, that's lovely.
That is actually, that's a really spot on
Really nice idea. Well, you're a lovely bunch, I must say. £51 million. You were on the Sunday Times Rich List.
Yeah, that's what Harry Kane's
Like
got.
Harry Kane. What would you be spending it on? Pete says 35 million of it he'd give to charities like Battersea and Blue Cross. Lovely, isn't
Who's that, Pete?
Pete says that. The rest of it would go on a nice house in the Norfolk Broads.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
And a
think that's
boat.
a bit mad. I couldn't give 35. If I had 50 million quid, I could not give 35 million of it away.
No.
I just couldn't.
Neither could I. Maybe
We're
5.
selfish. 5.
2.
1.
1.
20 quid. We're dreadful. We've got fantastic viewers and generous
We're like
viewers
really
and
good
listeners.
people, and we're like...
We're awful.
I'd give lots to my family.
Would
Get
you?
them all a nice house, nice car, pay off the mortgages. Yeah, they'd all be very well looked after. No?
They need to stand
What would
on
you
their-
do?
Need to stand on their own 2 feet.
You'd buy yourself a nice house.
I'm sure we'd do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's not going to happen, is it? Unless we win the Euro Millions tomorrow.
Oh, what's that?
Or it's tonight. No, it's tonight, isn't it? That's about 150 million, is it?
Well, that would do
Something like
nicely, yeah. Yeah, that would do nicely. I'll do that later, thanks.
Anyway, Rishi Sunak is incredibly rich still. They've got...
They're on the list.
Well, yeah, they're not billionaires. They're...
Here they are.
They've got 529 million quid, but they've lost 201 million pounds in the last 12 months, so that's about 500,000 pounds a day they've lost. But he's cheering himself up by saying he's going to still be in power and win the next general election. Because not that pays him that much, but it's about 130,000 for being
like
PM.
that,
But the Prime Minister has said to stay in power, he will not have any coalition with any other party, including former allies, the DUP.
Yes, Mr Sunak has been speaking at the G7 in Japan, where he's also unveiled new sanctions against Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Let's talk to our political reporter, Olivia Utley. And Olivia, clearly Ukraine is very much top of the agenda for all of this. But, I mean, the international community really going to want to see something solid come out of the G7, aren't they?
Yes, they will. And it looks as though, in spite of all the very sort of friendly, united-sounding official diplomatic communique, there is a bit of a difference in how much Western leaders are willing to pledge to Ukraine. So this morning, Rishi Sunak, who of course has been a leader in the West in defending Ukraine and doing everything he can to stop the Russian invasion, has announced these sanctions on vital Russian minerals, so Russian diamonds. There's a sanction on those now. But he says that he hopes that other Western leaders will join him as they have before. But Belgium has already ruled out doing something similar. So there is a little bit of a tension there. It's also quite awkward at the G7 because Volodymyr Zelensky has made this surprise visit, and it'll actually be the first time he comes face to face with the leaders of India and Brazil, who have not supported Ukraine really in any way, and definitely haven't done anything like what the international community were hoping. So there's a bit of tension there. There's also a bit of tension on the question of Taiwan. I expect, again, we'll see that the official communique is all sounds very united and the rhetoric will be very strong. But behind the scenes, it sounds as though the US and Japan are a lot more hawkish about the threat from China to Taiwan and believe that it should be the top priority of the international community. Meanwhile, European presidents, including Macron, and it sounds like Olaf Scholz, sort of believe that have a bit more of a laissez-faire attitude, think that maybe this isn't the biggest issue facing us at the moment, and think that we should still be talking to China on issues such as climate change, even in spite of the threat to Taiwan. So we are beginning to see a few little cracks in that sort of diplomatic armour that we've seen presented to the world so far.
Yes, and there will be tensions throughout the week, I'm sure. We've heard Rishi Sunak announcing these sanctions, as you say, and in part this will be him wanting to be seen seriously as a statesman, not only on the world stage, but also to people at home as well.
Yes, definitely. This has been quite a tricky week for Rishi Sunak. I was at a Conservative conference, NatCon, earlier in the week, and it did really begin to feel as though, by the end of it, as though Rishi Sunak's premiership was in a little bit of trouble. For the last sort of 7 or 8 months, the Conservative Party has felt that, from all wings of the Conservative Party really, have felt that they've got to unite behind Rishi Sunak, because the alternative is electoral oblivion, given everything that happened last year, all the turbulence with Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. They felt that they just really had to show a sort of united front. But after that local election drubbing where the Tory party did so incredibly badly, it seems to have given some rebels, as it were, in the Conservative Party a bit more licence to speak out against the Prime Minister. So we heard Jacob Rees-Mogg saying that the government's plan to cut migration was pathetically unambitious, I think his words were. Miriam Cates, who's a real rising star of the Conservative Party, someone you might expect to be sort of buttering up the Prime Minister, openly criticising the government's childcare plan. And then, of course, we had the Home Secretary, who didn't actually criticise Rishi Sunak openly, but she suggested that legal migration should be the priority, perhaps. This wasn't quite said, but it was implied, rather than the illegal migration that Rishi Sunak is concentrating on. So yes, as you say, it's more important than ever for Rishi Sunak to try and appear as much of a statesman and as much of a serious Prime Minister as possible, because at home, in his own party, the cracks are beginning to show.
OK. Olivia, thanks very much indeed. I mean, you do wonder what's going to happen with it all. No wonder the Labour Party is comparatively buoyant and you're doing well in the polls, because at the minute, and this happens with all political parties, actually, after they've been in government for a long time, they just seem to start to eat themselves.
Yeah. But surely, I mean, common sense would tell you 4 Prime Ministers in a year? Probably not the best look. You wouldn't want to look for another leader, would you?
Not now.
You think, but it's apparently not what's being felt on the ground at conferences like NatCon. Let us know what you think. Should Rishi Sunak be replaced? Should the Tories throw the weight behind somebody else in the hope that they could win the next general election? Or do you stand confident like Rishi, who says, I'll be PM for years? That's on the front of the Daily Express today. Let us know what you think. gbnews@gbnews.uk.
Now, in other news today, the brother of TV star Philip Schofield will be sentenced for child sex offences this morning. 54-year-old Timothy Schofield was convicted of 11 sexual offences involving a child between 2016 and 2019.
Promoting lower-calorie takeaways in delivery apps could help to tackle obesity. That's according to 3 new studies that found calorie labels played a major role in reducing the overall calorie content of orders.
The government will miss its target for installing electric vehicle chargers in England, according to the RAC at least, which says only 27 out of 119 motorway services currently meet the target. It follows the pledge last year that every motorway service area will have at least 6 rapid chargers by the end of this year. And I don't know why it would be so problematic to get them in.
No.
Unless it's just down to money.
Well, surely it's just money, isn't it?
But then, well, yes, but then aren't they, where you do see chargers, they tend to be owned by company. I mean, Tesla put their own chargers in, and BP do a lot of chargers, and there's all these different. Presumably, they're putting them in themselves because then they're making the profit out of it, aren't they? So why aren't they getting them in?
It's just not good enough, is it? Though, you know, there's this push for people to get electric vehicles, and the infrastructure just isn't there in order to charge them.
No.
I mean, even if you have a charger at home, you are very limited as to how far you can go. With an electric vehicle. It's quite different. Only 27 out of 119 motorway services currently have electric vehicle chargers. It's not a lot, is it?
No,
It's
and then I
not
have
enough.
to say there's an electric vehicle showroom near where I live, and they have signs up saying there are more EV chargers than there are petrol stations in the UK. Well, there might be, but that's individual chargers. Not, there aren't as many chargers as there are petrol pumps.
Yeah.
So you've got to look through the top line a little bit on all of this, and I find it frustrating because I know some people say we got criticised actually a while ago with someone very famous actually who's all into their EV, who said that it's typical of GB News moaning about electric vehicles. I'd love an electric car. I just need one with slightly better range and more places to charge it. I'd love one.
Well, my mum's bought an electric vehicle, but has had to keep her petrol car as well to do long haul journeys.
Yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't work yet to do those long haul journeys. So I'm just nipping around town.
No, we're not quite there yet.
We're not there yet.
But hopefully we will be before too long.
Yeah.
It's clear. I mean, it makes the air cleaner around towns and cities. Well, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Now, the counting of votes is set to begin later in Northern Ireland's council elections.
Yeah, voters went to the polls yesterday to decide who would represent them across Northern Ireland. Sinn Féin fielding more candidates than anyone else, followed not too far behind by the DUP.
Well, the final results are not expected to be confirmed until Saturday.
Well, let's talk to our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie. Morning to you, Doogie. I mean, what are we expecting? What were the exit polls showing?
Well, good morning and welcome to Lisburn Leisureplex. The countdown here has actually just got underway about 10 minutes ago. And yes, these are exit polls will always show a look at what's going on, but they're never actually accurate until these boxes are open. We do know that the vote in local elections is very much down because local elections, no matter how anybody paints it, really are about local issues. They're about rates, they're about bins, they're about street lighting. Actually, what you're just talking about electric points going in, of course, the infrastructure has to go in for that, which means more electric cables, more pavements dug up, because the more cars that are on those chargers, the more current is pulled out of those electric cables, so therefore more and more infrastructure has to go in. So local council elections are very much about the day-to-day issues. Some people do use them as a mid-term to give the sitting government a bit of a push one way or the other if they don't like it, but on a whole, really it is about those day-to-day issues, and so mainly ratepayers will turn out at elections like this to make sure that their pound is going that bit further. Now, in Northern Ireland, the same as the whole way across the UK, rates have gone up, and that is causing problems for local councils, and it is causing PR problems for them, of course, because those in the public sector are looking more and more wages. Now, the Northern Ireland Assembly is not sitting and hasn't sat since last year. In fact, Paul Givan, the former First Minister, has just come in behind me. His father is one that's standing here. And the Unionists have come under serious pressure to go back in to that government. In fact, in the last few weeks, the real pressure has been put on them in a PR type way to make sure that the vote holds. But why I'm in Lisburn is because it is one of the more affluent, younger council areas, Lisburn, Castlereagh. There's a lot more disposable income here, a lot more mixed marriage couples in this area. And really what I am looking at is not the DUP and Sinn Féin. I am looking at that middle ground, the Alliance Party. They currently hold about 8 seats here. Through what I'm looking at and what I'm hearing on the ground, I reckon that could go up as much as 14, 15, 16 seats. They could well turn out to be the largest party in this particular council area. And those that will be squeezed there will be the Ulster Unionist Party and possibly the SDLP. And the Ulster Unionists were those that said they would go back in with the Windsor Framework document of unionism, and that may be to their cost. So we're just sitting waiting now to see these boxes come out, because they are PR elections, which means that every vote transfers, and when it transfers at a little less. Sinn Féin are the absolute masters at PR elections. The DUP are learning, but the Alliance Party really are on that tail too.
OK, Doogie, thanks very much.
Now, thousands of customers are about to receive up to £180 from two major energy companies after they were overcharged.
Yes, the regulatory body has found that Good Energy and OVO Energy charge households above the maximum rates allowed under the energy price cap.
Well, Malcolm Grimston, Senior Research Fellow at Imperial College, is joining us now live. Good morning to you, Malcolm. Really good to have you with us. I mean, this is a positive that people are getting their money back, but they were overcharged in the first place.
Yes, what seems to have happened is that when the price cap was introduced in 2019, it wasn't designed to be something which would set energy prices as we've seen in the last year. The companies, these are relatively small companies that are involved, and they just didn't seem to have keyed into their process that if you transferred from paying in cash across to paying by direct debit, you weren't automatically, the price cap was not automatically set up and made to work. Now, say, you wouldn't notice that under normal circumstances, but because of the very peculiar circumstances of the last year, this became extremely important. They shouldn't have done it. They should have got it right. To be fair to them, they were the ones that told Ofgem that they'd got it wrong and had come forward and said, look, we've made this mistake. We need to put it right. So I don't think there was any deliberate intention to defraud customers here. I think one thing that is that for small companies, the sheer complexity of all of these measures that the government has introduced to help us through this crisis are really quite a severe strain when you're only a fairly small company with a few tens of thousands of customers.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with all of this, I mean, so it's good. It's not malicious. They've held their hands up to it. Money's going back, so that's all a positive. However, we're talking about there's a lot of people still really struggling to pay their bills. You can imagine, Malcolm, a lot of people saying, I just don't know what to do, and almost burying their heads in the sand.
Yes, well, if companies that are actually administering the scheme don't fully understand it and can make these mistakes, how can the rest of us know if we're actually getting the full payments? Because we had, if you remember, we had that £400 that came through to absolutely all of us. Then we had the price cap. Then we had the government energy price guarantee. All of these things going on at the same time. And on top of that, of course, you've got the cold fuel payments in the winter. You've got the specific help for people on benefits. It's horrendously complicated. And at the end of the day, I guess we just have to trust that our energy companies and Ofgem will ultimately get us to the right place. And I say, and as you've said, the good thing about this is that as soon as the companies realised there was a mistake, they put their hands up to it and alerted Ofgem. This wasn't a need for a very detailed investigation to catch people out. So, yeah, I've got a little bit of sympathy for these relatively small companies dealing with an enormously complicated field. They're not making much money. Over 30 of these companies have gone bust over the last 2 years. It's not a great area to be in financially, energy supply at the moment. It's the big boys, the upstream ones, who are making the vast profits. So, yeah, it's in a sense a good result here. It has been discovered the money is going back to consumers. Whether I could put my hand on my heart and say I'm now absolutely sure that there aren't other little problems in the system to be dealt with, I don't think anybody can do that at the moment.
OK, Malcolm, good to see you. Thank you. I think we need to keep on top of there's one thing you can do is keep submitting meter readings.
Yeah.
I've started doing that now, like every couple of months or so.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Because they think you're using more than you are if you're being really careful. I've done that, and my direct debit halved last month because I put a new reading in.
Well, there you go. Get meter readings done regularly. Gives you a really good idea, doesn't it, of what you're using. Do get in touch. Any of the stories that we're talking about today. Could be energy, could be Rishi Sunak, could be what's your favourite way to have eggs in the morning. Lots of you getting in touch on that. Or how you'd spend £51 million if you're on the Sunday Times rich list. GBNews at gbnews.uk. But do stay with us because West Ham's victory as they reach their first European final since 1999. We're going to be talking about that with Aidan McGee next. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, it's me. Welcome back. 8:25. Good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Still to come for you.
Labour are pushing for NHS patients to be treated better as waiting lists continue to grow. The party's chair, Annalise Dodds, joins us at 10 tonight to tell us what they could do to fix it.
And are you being forced to sacrifice your broadband to save cash? We're going to talk to a consumer rights expert at 9:20 to see if you're entitled to any extra help.
And there's ways you can get in touch with us this morning. Not for you doing so what you do if you were rich. And all of you are very good people, and you'd all donate it all to charity, it seems. Very good. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Do keep getting in touch with us this morning.
Aidan McGee's here with all the sport. If you had 51 million quid like Harry Kane, would you give it all away?
I would probably buy Queen's Park Rangers and just spend it on them.
Could you afford Queen's Park Rangers?
Yeah, easily. Yeah, at the moment, yeah, they pay you to take it, but yeah, it was. Yeah, you could probably get it for about 8-10 million now. Yeah,
would you?
Have a few quid to put in the pockets of 25-year-old brats,
right, yeah.
and to play for us. Yeah, but that's probably what I'd do. Yeah.
Oh, well, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, what's going on with West Ham?
Well, they won through to a European final for the first time since 1976 last night. So they were, I wouldn't say the odds were against them, but they took a slender lead over to Holland yesterday against RZ Alkmaar. They were 2-1 up from the first leg at the London Stadium, and it was fancied that they'd be really under the cosh. They weathered the storm. They were up against it a little bit, but then they scored in the 4th minute of added time, Pablo Fornals, to send them through to... Well, they haven't won a European trophy since 1999, but even that one wasn't a really big one. But big night for them. But then it was just marred afterwards by, I think we can see some pictures of some quite unedifying scenes afterwards where there was... yeah, see it now.
Oh, dear.
So those are the fans of AZ Alkmaar. They're putting down a fence to try and attack the West Ham supporters and the players. And if you see, there should be some pictures in a moment, maybe, of Michail Antonio and Declan Rice trying to get their families and their loved ones out of the stand. But, I mean, look, we haven't seen those scenes for quite a while, have we? This is actually the players and the staff of West Ham having to get involved. And this is meant to be one of the biggest nights in their recent history. This is what they promised to bring back to the London Stadium, to bring back famous European nights. They go to Holland, and it's very much the home side that are the antagonists. I've been to that stadium. I went there with Arsenal for work back in 2009. They do have quite a fearsome reputation, those supporters, and having lost, they took it out on West Ham, and it's very disappointing.
It's like something from the 1980s, that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, I mean, there is still a bit of a hooligan problem in parts of Europe, whereas the English game, it was known as English disease, wasn't it, back in the 80s? And it doesn't seem to have dampened down completely in certain parts of Europe. But there'll be an investigation.
Isn't it?
There'll be an investigation for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Should we look at the Premier League now and Newcastle United manager?
That's right, yeah. They're almost in the Champions League, a 4-1 win over Brighton last night, just solidified their position. They're now, I mean, Eddie Howe was talking about it last night and said that, you know, we'll celebrate big time once it's secure. But, yeah, 4-1 win for them. And I must mention Rafa Nadal as well. He's going to miss the French Open. He's known as the King of Clay, 13 times champion on that surface. And it looks like now, we saw Roger Federer's retirement last year. It looks like he's calling time on his career next year in 2024. A hip injury is going to keep him out of Roland Garros. Hugely disappointing for him because he would have hoped to have maybe edged ahead in that race with Novak Djokovic on 22 majors each.
Well, he's ancient now, isn't he?
Well,
36.
I don't know. He is, but Federer went on to... Federer played a different game. Federer's game was more based on movement and it wasn't so much about destruction. And so it puts more pressure on joints. And he's always had knee problems. I mean, there's been a strong suggestion that had he not missed all those tournaments, he would have won even more majors. I think that's certainly the case. But what a competitor. What a man. Somebody who came out of the... I mean, his uncle was a player for Real Madrid, and so the sporting prowess ran in the family. And do you remember Euro 96, England beating Spain? His uncle missed a penalty, Miguel Angel Nadal. And so, as I say, the sporting prowess ran in the family, and to win 22 majors. I think, look, he may have one more left in him, you never know.
They must have been gutted, the family, when he went, no, I want to be a tennis player.
He's still a Real Madrid fan, though. He's still, because I used to go along and ask him questions about football, and everyone used to wonder what the hell I was playing at.
Yeah, well,
I was just trying to get a line for the papers, you know, scouting around as usual.
Yeah. Now, I know you consider yourself, Aidan, one of the sexiest men on television.
Well, I don't know about that.
But what about sexiest managers?
Well, I was a manager at my previous job. I managed the football team there. I was known as Mourinho. I actually was. Look, this is excellent. In the Sun today, page 10, the formula that proves that Eric Ten Hag, the Manchester United manager, is the sexiest manager.
Well,
we can just hold him up. Yeah, we can.
Baldy.
Well, you can't say that, can you? Anyway, it's based on a formula. So the boffins, I mean, boffins.
Come on.
The only place you see the word boffins is in tabloid papers, isn't it?
I mean, if they're the sexiest men in football,
it's based on an algorithm. So it's about the number of times they've appeared in tweets. The number of times the word sexy has been used in association with them.
Probably sarcastically, to be fair.
It's artificial intelligence. This is what's leading us to.
Is it? It's gone wrong.
Well, it's wrong.
Eric Ten Hag is first. The Red Devils leader is the full package. Handsome, looks good in a suit, and his managerial skills make him attractive. And then Mikel Arteta at number 2. I can't say anything nice about Arsenal. They're my least favourite team, but Mikel is the best-looking manager. He's my type, dark and handsome. And it looks like he's joined me in Turkey for those teeth. A great smile.
I mean, look at his bags under his eyes.
Yeah, but if you're managing Man United, you're going to get that stress, aren't you?
How old is he?
I don't know, actually. 53.
53. Well, yeah. I want to look better than that.
Very quick word on Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, go on.
4-0 down in the first leg at Peterborough on Friday. They were for all the world. They were looked down and out, and they took them home last night, Peterborough, and beat them 5-1 in after extra time and 1 on penalties. A magnificent turnaround. The last English club to throw a 4-0 lead in the first leg was Queen's Park Rangers in 1984. So I'm glad someone else has taken that distinction away from us.
Oh yes. Lovely, Aidan. Thank you very much. He's clearly trying to find a sexy football manager. He's like trying to find a sexy MP.
Arsene Wenger got number 7 on the list, which he's done well at the age of 72.
I can't visualise him right now.
Rafa Benitez. Kevin Keegan, number 10.
Kevin Keegan?
Yeah, I know.
That's what. Well, with short grey hair, but he looks better. He's grown into his looks.
Do you remember the bubble perm?
Oh yeah, the bubble perm. Looked like Brian May, didn't he, back in the day? Dear me, I don't know. If you've got any better ideas than that.
Yeah, which manager does it for you?
It's not lit your flame, has it, darling?
No, it certainly hasn't. No, not yours either.
Oh, no.
They're not on the money with this, but let us know what you think. Who is the best-looking football manager? GBNews@gbnews.uk.
Wayne Rooney didn't make the list, did he?
No, Pep Guardiola at 3.
Pep Guardiola,
Yeah. All right, the fans' eyes will be glued to the pitch when his lads play the Champions League final, but I'm sure the ladies won't be able to take their eyes off him.
Oh, yeah, right. Call another one.
Yeah.
Coming up, we're going to talk about staff members at BT who are apparently going to be replaced with AI technology. We're going to do that with Aidan. Liz Kershaw and David Mellor are up next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:37, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And it's time for a look.
A lock? Oh, here we go.
A look through the papers this morning. And the Express captures Rishi Sunak and his wife touching down in Hiroshima yesterday ahead of the G7 summit with a wonderful Union Jack umbrella, which Stephen really likes.
Which apparently someone messaged in and said you can buy for $29.99.
Yeah.
Don't know from where, though. Saturday night is taken away, according to The Sun, as Ant and Dec announced that they are going to move away from the show in 2025.
In the Mail, some Hollywood glamour from the Cannes Film Festival as Fleabag star Phoebe Waller-Bridge poses in a black gown.
Yes, and even Stephanie Tetchy said she didn't like the dress. So it's you on your own for that
It's
one.
me on my own, but me and all the national newspapers, darling. It's everywhere. Everyone thinks she looks great.
Well, not as good as the Princess of Wales, who looked a vision in emerald as she went to visit a children's mental health charity yesterday.
Now, that we can agree on. She's so natural as well. There's some lovely videos of her just talking to members of the public as they go about their day. She's just a delight.
Yes.
A delight.
Lovely.
We're very lucky, I think.
We are. I think we are very lucky.
And we're lucky as well to be joined by Liz Kershaw and former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, David Mellor. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Should I get one of those black dresses? What do you say?
Well, I'd tell you what, David.
Fishtail dress,
I'd pay
David.
good money to see that. I would.
You'd look wonderful, David.
Yes.
Liz, let's start with you, shall we? And this is the start of the great AI jobs bloodbath, according to the Mail.
I just think that dress is too miserable for the seafront in Cannes. It's not appropriate.
Not appropriate.
Oh, right, OK. Anyway, the great AI jobs bloodbath. So BT, which is one of the nation's top companies, has announced that the first one's really to put a figure on it and specify what it will be used for. But AI could replace 10,000 jobs. So I thought, well, that's kind of understandable in the business they're in, which is computer technology and communications. But it's a lot of those jobs will be, which in itself is worrying because you don't want AI taking over all your communication systems. But these jobs are going to be in customer services. And BT says this would not mean machines will replace humans entirely. Customers will not feel like they're dealing with robots. But you know what it's like when you ring up and you just need to talk to somebody?
I would like to speak to a representative.
Yeah.
You say 18,000 times.
Please say simply what the nature of your inquiry is. Fed up. I'm sorry, I don't recognise that. No, it's ridiculous. Anyway, some good news in the papers associated with this story. First of all, Sting says, because AI is now writing songs, for instance, recently they took Liam Gallagher's voice, didn't they, and copied that and then put some Oasis-type music and lyrics to it. And even the Gallagher brothers said, that's quite good. But Sting says it will never replace human songwriting. I hope not, because human songwriting is all about passion and emotion and being emotive. Can a robot do that? But more interesting for you, artificial intelligence has the potential to replace many jobs, but not investigative journalism.
All right.
This comes from the guys who worked on the Washington Post and investigated and led to the resignation of President Nixon in 1974. And they say even the most revolutionary technology will be useless in exposing political scandals because they can't know which phone calls to make to whom. So they're saying...
It's not very good, actually, for us, though, to be fair, because we're not doing investigative journalism. We're sat behind a desk.
Reading.
So maybe we could be replaced. Maybe I'll have to become an investigative journalist again.
Yeah.
But
I'm not going to argue with that.
No, don't.
All right, David, let's have a look in The Guardian, shall we? Fresh sanctions against Russia.
Yes, The Guardian goes quite big. First of all, on the front page, fresh sanctions against Russia, as Prime Minister seeks to rally support for Kyiv. And then, of course, there's 2 pages of news in the build-up to the G7. So basically, this is regarded as a significant meeting. And, of course, as usual, The Guardian has to report on countries split on wisdom of humiliating Moscow. So, Yeah, there's a lot going on, and you get a pretty good account of it in The Guardian.
Yeah, but they always take a very negative spin on it all, don't they?
Yeah, but that's the nature of the Guardian. You know, the Guardian is an opposition. I mean, opposition to most things that are going on. But that's not to say that their writing isn't very good and thought-provoking. I mean, I picked up another one. Simon Jenkins, who, of course, was editor of the Times and so on, and he says, as rebel right-wing Tories jockeyed for position this week, they tore up any remaining hopes of a Conservative election victory. Now, that's only online so far, but basically the suggestion is that the Tories are not gifted enough, and Tory ministers, and are squabbling all the time with each other. And he makes the point that, I'm sorry to say, I suppose it's an old git point, because he's a bit of an old git and so am I, that we're dealing with people who are in the cabinet who would not have been ministers in better staffed Conservative administrations, and that is one of the big issues that, you know, and also that, you know, that Margaret Thatcher, although she was a pretty partisan person, she kept all of shades of opinion in the party in government, and then worked extremely hard to ensure that they all pulled together. But there isn't a Margaret Thatcher. There isn't a tough-minded person who keeps the show on the road, and that's what that's what Simon Jenkins is saying. In, you know, another one of those good comment pieces that I find the reason why you read newspapers is not just for the news, which you get more up to date on television. It's the analysis.
Yeah, no, it's a very fair point. Liz, in the Telegraph this morning, this is the last thing anyone wants to hear, food bills for an average family are going to rise by about £1,000 a year.
Yeah, in the article it says, earlier this week, supermarket bosses were summoned to Downing Street to explain why prices have risen so fast. There's nothing in this article that does explain it. I've got some examples from The Sun in a different article. The price of Bisto, you know, gravy stuff, powder, is going up. By the next increase will have gone up 76%, and also Ambrosia rice pudding going up from 99p to £1.74. So the poorest people are hit most because they have less disposable income. Everybody has to buy food, so food represents a bigger percentage of their expenditure. But when you go in the supermarket, it's true. I mean, everything is a shock. You think, hang on a minute, that was £1.79 last week, and now it's £2.30.
I tell you what, the price of bread seems to be coming down.
Yeah,
slightly.
they keep bread down, and milk and butter. I noticed they're all pegging the butter at £1.99, you know.
Well, you say butter, do you mean spread?
No, I mean proper butter.
Proper butter?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Because that rocketed, didn't it?
Well, they're all pegging that at £1.99. And, you know what, I don't understand the justification. I think a lot of companies, the firms that process food have dominated our eating habits and shopping habits since the 60s now, since supermarkets opened. And I do think there's a bit of profiteering going on by the likes of Heinz and Nestle, and they're thinking, oh, everybody's expecting food price inflation, so we'll sneak this up a bit more. My message is, don't eat it, don't buy it. Just buy basic ingredients.
And that's how you lose 10 stone.
OK, I'm talking about saving money now. The other thing is, I know I've got the luxury of time because I'm semi-retired, but I go and I buy what's on offer.
Yeah.
And cherry-pick the different supermarkets. Not everybody has the time to do that, but that's a way to make savings. But it's all right, Rishi Sunak calling them in and saying, right, why are prices going up so fast? Why are they going up?
Well, this is it. We do need some answers on that. David, I think we've got time to have a look at this £18 billion boost for Britain, courtesy of Japan and the meetings that have all been going on.
Yes, mind you, there's always an element of falsity about this, in the sense that every conceivable thing they dredge up to put in to make out that this is a big package. But what is interesting is that the problems with China have pushed Japan and Britain together more. There's always been a strong commercial relationship between Britain and Japan, but there may be more of that, a more obvious commitment to it. Because, you know, if you're Japan, who, for historical reasons, does not feel able to spend a lot of money on defence, what Chairman Xi is doing, not that much water away from Japan, has got to be very worrying. And so Japan will have to be building relationships, or rather taking some relationships off the shelf and putting more life into them. And what Jason Groves, the political editor of the Mail, is saying is that the Japanese are very keen to boost their relationship with Britain by producing a whole lot of probably much needed contracts.
Yeah, oh well. Got to keep your fingers crossed it all is starting to head in our direction a little bit. Look, thank you both. We're going to leave it there just for the time being, but we are going to be back with more papers and hopefully talk to Labour's Annalise Dodds after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. You're watching Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Now, it's time to get a bit of political news for you this morning, because there's actually real concern within the health service, according to the Labour Party, at least, over this elective recovery task force. Now, this was a whole scheme. It was unveiled at the end of last year to say that within the NHS you could then use the private sector, private healthcare, to try and bring down this waiting list of people who are waiting more than 18 months for some surgery. Is it working? Is it not? Let's talk to the chair of the Labour Party, Annalise Dodds, who joins us now. Good morning to you. I know you've got some real concerns over this, haven't you?
Good morning. Yes, we have, because we see at the moment over 7.3 million people on an NHS waiting list. And the government promised with a huge blaze of publicity that they were going to do something about this with the task force that you just mentioned. Well, actually, we still haven't seen the outcomes from that task force being published. And this is a big problem. You know, Labour's calculated that if we'd seen spare capacity in the private sector being used from the moment when Labour called for that, which was last January, almost 300,000 people could actually have received treatment. You know, lots and lots of people now are going to the private sector for treatment. They're feeling forced to do that because they're on such a long NHS waiting list. But of course, there are so many others who simply can't afford to do that. This is a really unfair situation, and the Conservative government needs to get a grip and actually be making sure they are straining every sinew to get waiting lists down, just as Labour would do.
How would Labour then tackle that? 7.3 million people on the NHS waiting list, as you say. I mean, would you use the private sector in order to get that waiting list down?
Well, yes, that's what we actually called for in January of last year. And if government had heeded our calls back then, as I said, we could have seen, I think it's about 280,000 more operations taking place, more procedures taking place. Now, we really need to see that urgent action because of the impact that these waiting lists are having on people's lives. You know, I've been speaking with a young constituent of mine. She was told over a year ago that she urgently needed an operation. Over a year of waiting now, and she and her parents were told that actually if they could have afforded to go private, then she would have had that operation many months before. That's wrong. We actually need to see a system where people are getting the treatment that they need as quickly as possible, and that's what Labour would be doing.
Well, yeah, it is wrong, and people do need to be seen quickly. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But it is about how you do it. I mean, the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, said, as you've just said, Labour would use spare capacity in the private sector to get patients seen faster and free at the point of use. But only earlier this month, the Health Foundation said that using the private sector can only have a very limited impact on the waiting list backlog. So, I mean, even if you implemented that, it's not, according to the Health Foundation, isn't going to do what you want.
Well, actually, analysis indicates that you could have seen up to 300,000 more procedures taking place. And I think for those patients, it wouldn't have been minimal. But I do understand what the Health Foundation is talking about for the long term, because we need to get a grip on the real crisis for the long term, make sure that we're boosting NHS numbers. And that's why Labour said that we would be taking difficult choices here. We would cancel the non-dom tax exemption and use that money to massively boost our NHS workforce. And that would mean that our NHS would be fit for the future. You know, we want an NHS where no one feels that they have to go private, because the NHS will be working so well that they won't need to even be considering that. That is going to take, however, some time. That requires that long-term plan for staffing that Labour set out and which we're absolutely determined to deliver.
I wanted to ask you about the front of the Daily Express this morning. It's Rishi Sunak very confidently saying he's going to be PM for years to come. He says he is going to be Prime Minister. He's going to win the next election. What did the Labour Party say to that? Are you going to be just as determined to win the next election?
Well, we're certainly just as determined, and I think the electorate are pretty determined at the moment as well, because people voted up and down England to actually reject Conservative councillors at the time of the last local elections, and very often they voted Labour, particularly in key marginal seats, to show that they wanted a change in government. They wanted that better future with Labour, and I'm confident that we will have a majority Labour government at the next election if we keep setting out the big choices that Labour would be making, very different choices to those being taken by the Conservatives.
But this is where it gets confusing. It's all about honesty with people. That matters, doesn't it? And, you know, straight after those local elections, Keir Starmer came out and said, we're on track for a majority government at the next general election. Well, that's not what the analysts say. The analysts say we're on track for a hung parliament.
Well, I think actually what most analysts were very upfront about was the fact that because these elections were only in England, they didn't reflect what's been taking place in Scotland. And in Scotland, Labour has been moving forward. You know, we've seen a real change in Labour's fortunes north of the border. Why is that important? Because that signals that we will be in a stronger position that would have been indicated from any projections from the local elections. But also, I think many analysts said very clearly that when you look at where Labour won, we were picking up seats in those key marginal areas. So looking just at the overall vote share, for example, isn't that helpful when indicating what the situation will be at a general election. And actually, most analysts that I've heard from have been really upfront about that, and they've been really clear about that. I think that's quite right.
Yeah, except that within, I mean, certainly within some of the key red wall areas, which we know heavily voted Brexit, which is why perhaps they were backing Boris Johnson in 2019, a lot of those, he said in the local elections, went back to the Labour Party. However, then this week, Keir Starmer says, I'm going to renegotiate the Brexit deal if I get into power. That's going to turn those people off, isn't it?
Well, actually, I've had a lot of conversations with people up and down the country, including in many areas where lots of people voted for Brexit. And Labour's been clear that we are not going to rejoin the EU. We are going to be putting our country first. And sadly, that's not what the Conservative government has been doing around trade, for example. You know, we've got a ridiculous situation at the moment where we've got huge amounts of red tape at our borders for British businesses to try and contend with. And you've got countries like Australia, for example, that are obviously not in the EU, but that have got a veterinary agreement with the EU. Now, why on earth can't the UK have that so that we can strip away that red tape? So Labour is focused on practical changes to actually make Brexit work so that we're not seeing our businesses being harmed by what has been a really unhelpful approach from the Conservative government, which hasn't always put our economic interest first.
OK, Annalise Dodds, really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. Interesting one, isn't it? Do you trust Labour when it comes to Brexit or not?
Do you trust Labour when it comes to the NHS? Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, figures tend to say yes on that one, but let us know what you think. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Good morning, 9 o'clock, Friday the 19th of May. Today, Rishi Sunak backs himself for victory. The PM has said he will win the next election and continue to deliver for the British people. The UK has unleashed a swathe of new sanctions against Russia. They'll see an end to Russian diamonds, nickel and copper arriving at our shores.
The count begins in Northern Ireland. Over 450 council seats will be up for grabs as Sinn Féin look to overtake the DUP as the largest party in the region. And could you be replaced by a computer? BT have announced that 10,000 jobs will be cut and artificial intelligence programs could be used to fulfil their duties.
Russian nickel, not
knickers.
Do not be getting Russian knickers.
We don't want anything. No.
No, there you go. Good morning, I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
It's all right, love. Nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. It's fine. Very smooth.
Russian.
Very smooth.
Smooth as butter.
Yes, exactly. Fascinating to see if you're just watching and saw Annalise Dodds. Love to know what you think.
Yes.
Are Labour, are they now, preparing for power? Well, they would think they're preparing for power. Do you think they've got what it takes? Is it time for a change now? We've just had enough of what's going on. Plus, the infighting in the Tory... But this is what I cannot understand, is when you are on the back foot, which the government is, why all this infighting? Does that not turn people off even more?
And why would you want to make it so public as well?
That's what I don't understand. No. But anyway,
perhaps they can't help themselves, as you were saying. Perhaps it's at that stage now where...
Or maybe like Liz Kershaw saying, oh, actually, I think they could put Boris back in, it could work. Or someone else, even. I don't know.
Who, though? Who? I
don't know.
I don't even know who it would be. But you might. Let us know what you think. GBnews at gbnews.uk. But Rishi Sunak, he thinks he's going to be the man in charge at the next general election, doesn't he? Yeah, he absolutely does. He's also ruled out any coalition with any other party, including the DUP. He's been speaking at the G7 in Japan, where he's also unveiled new sanctions against Vladimir Putin's Russia. Let's talk to our political reporter, Catherine Forster, who's here. Catherine, morning to you. First and foremost, let's talk about the optimism showed by Rishi Sunak. I mean, in a sense, what else is he going to say? But it smacks a little bit of being a little bit off the mark, doesn't it?
It sounds almost like, if I say it, it will be so. But in actual fact, he was asked, would he be in power after the next election? And he said yes. Of course he's going to say that. He didn't actually utter the words, I'm still going to be Prime Minister for years and years and years. No. So what else will he say? But clearly he wants to project an image of strength. He's had a difficult week, because last weekend there was the Conservative Democratic Organisation, a.k.a. Bring Back Boris. They were not supposed to say that. Yeah. But lots of people who would like to bring back Boris Johnson. And then the NatCon conference with lots of people freewheeling, basically saying the Conservative government of 13 years isn't Conservative, it's going in the wrong direction, and basically telling Rishi Sunak what he needs to do. So it's been tricky. And as you say, all these divisions, all these criticisms... People don't vote for united parties, do they? But plenty of Conservative MPs and Conservative supporters that feel things are not going in the right direction, and to win they need to move to the right, they need to cut taxes, etc. And on the other hand, Rishi Sunak and many others think, no, we have to be sensible, we have to bring inflation down, tax cuts will come in time, but we don't have the money at the moment. So really different approaches, and a battle for the soul of the Conservative Party, very publicly. Yes, and all the while, Rishi Sunak is at the G7 in Japan. What do you think he'll be hoping to take from this week? Surely he'll want to look statesmanlike on the world stage, but he'll want to impress people back at home as well. And he'll also feel the pressure, I suppose, to come back with something solid as well. Yes, I think much easier for him actually being on the global stage at the moment than being at home, because, of course, the world's wealthiest 7 democratic nations, and also the Japanese PM has invited along 8 other countries, including Brazil, including India. And Ukraine, of course, top of the agenda, along with economic security, China, climate change, etc. And we do know, don't we, that one area in which Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson before him did lead the way was in support for Ukraine. So I think he will be, with the announcement of these sanctions on bans on importing diamonds, copper, nickel, etc., 86 more people now being targeted. He's sending a message. Now, we don't actually import very much of these things, but it's more symbolic. The symbolism of saying, we are with you, we're not going away, we're here for the long haul, whatever you need. And, of course, we hear today that Volodymyr Zelensky will be appearing in person now on Sunday, possibly today, I think, virtually as well. So I think it is one way in which we can sort of hold our heads up, because, of course, how long is this united support among the West going to continue? Because it's very, very expensive. And a lot of people are thinking, hang on, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Why are we funding this war? But you see, it's interesting, is it? Because if you start to weaken that support, it sends a message to Russia, doesn't it? But also it sends a message to China. Exactly, because real worries now about what China may be contemplating regarding Taiwan. And so it really is important that there is a show of strength to basically send a message to China too, don't even think about it. And I think this is why Japan has invited countries like Australia, South Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, this sort of global south, wanting to show that they are united. Now, worth saying that countries like India and Brazil, in terms of Russia, have been very sort of on the fence. But it's incredible how times have changed, hasn't it? Because now, having all this period of relative peace and stability, we've got these very real threats from Russia and from China and, these frequent references to a world war. It's really worrying times.
Yeah, it certainly is a challenge for Rishi Sunak. Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you.
Now it's 9:07. Counting has begun for the Northern Ireland local elections. The polls closed last night. More than 400 council seats are up for grabs across 11 councils. It is the first electoral test for parties since last year's Assembly election. Sinn Féin had more candidates standing than anybody else.
A new once-a-week obesity jab can help people lose significant amounts of body fat. That's according to a new study. The jab, sold under the brand name Mounjaro, is currently approved by UK regulators for type 2 diabetes. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence is seeing whether the drug would be a good use of NHS funds before approving it for obesity.
Sewage was dumped in Scottish seas for more than 113,000 hours last year. That's according to the Marine Conservation Society. It's called on the Scottish Government to set spill reduction targets and monitor all storm overflow discharges. I don't understand how these things work, but it all seems to be down to storm, what do you call them?
Massive. Because one of the things that they're doing, because in the water industry companies have said they're going to storm drains, they're going to build these massive containers that will hold vast amounts of rainwater and things. Because it's when that overflows and they all fill up that it's them washing sewage out. Quite why the two are interlinked in that way. Why is the sewage not being treated? Well, it's because they're so outdated. It's like Victorian sewage systems that we're still using, and there's a lot more of us now than there were in the Victorian times. And it's overflowing, quite frankly. I did a story of that down in Whitstable, and you could smell it off the sea.
Oh.
Yeah, and I went down there with a sea swimmer who swims there every morning, and he literally said he had to bob around in it. Yeah. And if you've got no control over it, it's just there.
Bobbing along.
Bobbing along. It can't be pleasant, can it?
I mean, honestly.
It can make you really sick.
Oh,
so you've got to be really careful.
So.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it personally. I'd be down the pool.
No, I wouldn't do it
The leisure
either.
centre.
But we've got to clean that up. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
There you go.
5th biggest economy in the world, and we can't sort out
clean
water. You'd think that would be something quite easy to sort out, wouldn't you?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Now, let's tell you about 54-year-old Timothy Schofield. He's the brother of Philip Schofield. He's going to be sentenced at Bristol Crown Court today after being found guilty of child sex offences.
Well, joining us now with the latest is our South West of England reporter, Jeff Moody. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning. Well, as you say, Timothy Schofield, who's 54, was found guilty at Exeter Crown Court on 11 offences. The victim, who of course can't be named for legal reasons, told the trial that Mr. Schofield made him watch adult pornography and perform a variety of sex acts over a period of time. While Mr. Schofield pleaded not guilty, he said that the victim was 16 at the time, and he said that although they were watching adult pornography, they were sat at either ends of the sofa and there was no particular physical contact between them. But the jury heard that these meetings had in fact been taking place since the victim was 13 years of age, and they found him guilty of all charges, including 2 of sexual offences against a minor. Well, the allegations came to light when the teenager confided in a councillor in November 2021. 3 weeks later, Mr. Schofield was arrested. Now, this case is particularly shocking for two reasons. Firstly, Mr. Schofield works with the police. He's an IT technician for Avon and Somerset. And then, of course, there's the high-profile nature of Mr. Schofield's brother, the television presenter Philip Schofield, who said recently in a statement, "My overwhelming concern is and always has been for the well-being of the victim and his family. These are despicable crimes and I welcome the guilty verdict. As far as I am concerned, I no longer have a brother." Well, the senior investigating officer, Detective Inspector Keith Smith, said the defendant has exploited and abused the victim by carrying out a sickening series of offences over a significant period of time. Well, sentencing is due to take place here at Bristol Crown Court within the next hour.
OK, Jeff, thanks very much indeed.
Now, do stay with us. Lots more to come, including how you could save big on your broadband bill. This is Breakfast on GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
welcome back. The time is 16 minutes past 9. You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Still lots to come for you.
Yeah, at 9:30 we're talking to a former Top Gear presenter about the best way to buy your next car. With money, probably.
And Harrison Ford, 80-year-old Harrison Ford, was back on the red carpet last night for the 5th Indiana Jones movie. Stephanie Tecci will be live from the Cannes Film Festival for us.
And we want your thoughts, please. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Now, we're talking about the Sunday Times Rich List, aren't we? Because that came out online today. It's in the paper on Sunday Times, as suggested. We're asking you what you would do with £51 million.
Because that's what Harry Kane is worth. It was like the lowest figure on the list that we could see.
We're keeping it relatable compared to some of the numbers on that list.
Yeah.
But you're all very good people, is what we've surmised from these views. Bob in Sheffield has been in touch saying, I would set up businesses with the specific aim to retrain and employ armed forces veterans.
Oh, that's very good.
That's very nice,
That's very good. We were upset because we're tight here, frankly. Jill says, my dear Stephen, I was always your biggest fan.
Oh.
And even voted for you on the Trick Awards, which closed today, 12 o'clock now, because they extended it. But then you said you only give £50 out of 51 million away. I have to switch allegiance to... I don't think so. I don't think so, darling.
Oh, the votes have already been cast. That's good.
No, we're still... I mean, I'd probably give more than that away, but, you know, I wouldn't... What I'm saying, I wouldn't give, like, half of it away.
You wouldn't give 35 of the 51,
As someone
one of the viewers said, yes. Oh, on the Trick Awards note, you have got until 12 o'clock to vote.
I think.
So trick.org.uk, midday today. Stephen is up for Best News Presenter. It would be wonderful if he could pick that up, because we love him, don't we? And it's his anniversary today, wedding anniversary. So
that'd be
a nice present.
Would be nice.
Meant to be. It's all coming together.
Is it? Yeah.
And GB News Breakfast is up for Best Multi-Channel News Programme. So you can vote for GB News Breakfast, you can vote for Stephen, bish, bash, bosh.
All done.
Everyone's happy. Yeah. Trick.org.uk.
It's Trick without a K.
Trick without a K.
We're talking cost of living. Tina says, because Liz Kershaw was saying, the butter's pegged at $1.99. Tina says, could you please ask where butter can be bought for $1.99, more like £5? Yeah. No, I don't know where she's doing the shopping for $1.99.
It's £5 now for butter, isn't it?
Maybe it's just one of those little tiny things you get, in a hotel.
Yeah, maybe that's what she's talking about.
I don't know what she's saying.
Do you know what? I have seen this around. Philip says, how come a 100-gram jar of coffee in Sainsbury's has gone from £3 to £4.50? Coffee has gone up a lot, granulated coffee. Yeah, it's gone up loads. I don't know why.
No, that's shocking, actually. And I did think this as well, because, of course, Liz Kershaw was saying about ambrosia rice going up. Sue in Cheshire says, instead of buying tins of ambrosia rice at £1.74, try buying a kilo of long grain rice for £1.50 and making it from scratch. That's what I do. I don't like the tin stuff, anyway.
You make rice pudding from scratch?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Just milk and cream?
Sugar. Milk, a bit of sugar, butter. You want golden bubbles on the top, don't you?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I don't like the tin stuff.
You're a right baker, you know.
Yeah.
He's very good in the kitchen.
I tell you what it was. It's the way I was brought up. We always did baking at home. We always did loads of baking with Mum. Yeah, when she...
Good eye, actually.
Yeah. It's nice. It's a lovely thing to do with children, and they learn stuff.
It's true, and then in turn you learn about nutrition and all those really important things.
Oh, and do you remember licking the spoon?
Yeah.
Did you get to lick the spoon?
Yeah, I used to always eat, like, raw cake mix. That's my favourite thing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I didn't get more sick, actually.
That's why you're obsessed with food now.
That's why I'm still obsessed with food, yeah. And my granny's the same. We're exactly the same. Very bad, but it's good. Yeah. Baking is good. Very good.
If you don't know how to cook, and if you didn't get that experience as a youngster, because lots of people don't now, perhaps you can Google it or watch it on YouTube, on your Broadband.
Yes, very good link, yes.
Thank you.
Because a new survey has revealed that as many as 1 million people were forced to cut off their broadband in the last year due to the ever-increasing cost.
Yeah, according to Citizens Advice, people on universal credit who also pay for broadband are more than 4 times more likely to be behind on their bills.
Well, joining us now is consumer rights expert Martin James. Good morning to you, Martin. I mean, it's hard to imagine, really, a world without internet access in your home. It sounds silly, doesn't it? But, I mean, people are having to cut off their own broadband. They simply can't afford it.
Good morning, Ellie and Stephen. And yes, this is something I was really worried about because I've spent the last year and a half trying to help people through the cost of living crisis. And I was worried that people would make these snap decisions to cancel absolutely everything. And let's face it, these prices hit huge sums. The increases this year in April were, for many people, between 14 and 17%. So for many people, it's just been too much.
Is there a way that people can get help? Because, broadband is not a luxury anymore, is it? It's essential for so many things.
Well, absolutely, yes. I do occasionally get some people who can be a bit sniffy and tell me that it's not a luxury service. It actually is. Communicating is essential. The way that most of us can actually keep in touch with people with vital service as well. You're on benefits, you have to make your claim through services, and you need it to watch this programme. So it is absolutely essential for many people. Now, the irony is, back in July, August of last year, Nadine Dorries managed to get a couple of the broadband owners into place along with regulator Ofcom, and they managed to negotiate what's known as the social tariffs. Terrible name, but that basically means that there's if you are in receipt of certain benefits, you should be able to apply for cheaper broadband. That goes as low as 10 quid, or in some cases, if you want kind of a few more bells and whistles, about 20 quid. But, and here's the catch, you have to know what you're looking for. You have to know that it exists. And it's not the easiest thing to find on websites. I've done a lot of looking around, trying to see if I can find it. And it's tricky sometimes. So that's why, according to the regulator themselves, Ofcom, they reckon 4.3 million people who are entitled to this still aren't doing it. So cutting yourself off is a bit of a dramatic way to deal with the cost of living crisis. There is help out there, but nobody knows about it.
So what would you say to people who are watching and listening and are struggling with broadband bills or indeed any bills? What help is there for them out there, and how do they go about getting it?
Well, there's two levels of help. Firstly, if you are in receipt of kind of, the main benefits, see if you can get someone with a phone or go online through, obviously, a friend if you cut yourself off, and have a look. Social tariffs is the key thing to look for. All of the big providers have it. It should be easy for you to go back onto it. If you're already struggling financially, your broadband company, along with any other company that provides a utility service, that's energy, water, they are obliged to help you. Tell them that you're in financial difficulties and give them a bit of information about your budget. Now, loads of people say to me that they're not on benefits, this isn't fair, what about them? As I said, every single company, if you explain to them that you're experiencing financial difficulties temporarily or on a permanent basis, they will talk you through the options. And there are also free ombudsman services that you can go to if you think that the companies aren't treating you fairly. So don't suffer in silence. You don't have to wait until things get out of control. There is help out there. I just wish that it was a little bit more obvious for everybody.
Yeah, I know, look, people get embarrassed about asking for help, and you can understand that. But when you look at, what is it, £824 million, best part of £1 billion of support for broadband hasn't been claimed when it could have been. We are talking a lot of money out there to help people.
Yes, this is the irony. We're talking about communications, and yet this information isn't being communicated to people. This is not lost on me. And, there's only so much that you and I can do about getting that message out there. This is something as well I'd like, to people watching to actually, to engage in that neighbourhood spirit and actually go and speak to older people or people who are more vulnerable and less likely to know about these things in their local neighbourhoods. Let them know that these options are available. Typically, the people who are struggling financially or who are more vulnerable are far more likely to need to know about these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Martin, I just wanted to get your views. Sorry, I just thought I'd throw something at Martin.
Did you?
Martin, you don't mind if I just throw something at you to get your opinion on something?
No, I'm here for you.
Go on, then. We were hosting a debate, shall I say, earlier about working from home. And as we're talking about broadband and and people obviously relying on broadband to work from home. This is all about Elon Musk saying that it's morally wrong to work from home. We had a debate. We had one person saying that it's lazy, work-shy people working from home, and we had somebody else who came on and said it's flexible, it's the way of the future, people are saving a fortune on their commute, all those sorts of things. What do you make of this debate?
That's such a good question. Well, as you can see from my very glamorous background, I'm a freelancer, so I work from home. And I have to say, it is quite lonely. I do kind of miss the office environment, so I do get to go out a bit. However, I think both things need to be compared. People like Elon Musk and his slightly insane demand for people to be working 12 to 14 hours and staying in the office all of the time concern me a great deal. You have to have a work-life balance. I get that bosses are concerned that people are slacking off. However, the fact of the matter is, when I used to commute, despite living in central London, I'd lose 2 hours of my day, and I'd also lose a good couple of hours with people talking to me about rubbish as well. So I suppose I probably only got 4 hours work done in a 7 or 8 hour day versus a lot more at home. So I'd be inclined to say, as long as the bosses aren't keylogging their staff and checking every single minute, staff working from home can be more productive.
It's interesting though, Martin, because from your perspective, and I always found this when I was freelancing, is that you do put in the work when you're freelancing, because the only person who loses out if you slack off is yourself. Whereas if you're salaried, it's a different kettle of fish.
Yes, absolutely. I do kind of miss the office environment. I do regularly go and see people in offices all around the UK, and many of them have fallen into that pattern now of working Tuesday to Thursday, which is actually seems like quite a good compromise for the time being, because it does give people a little bit more help with childcare, allows them to have a life, and cuts down on their travel bills. But it's still something where we have to decide, what works best for different industries. There's no point making people go in just for the hell of it, or because you don't trust whether they're working or not. I'd suggest that maybe businesses do think their staff are slacking off. They should probably question why.
OK, Martin, good to talk to you this morning. I can only apologise to my colleague here throwing that at you out of the blue. No, it's very good.
That
We'll
was
have you
very
back,
good, Martin.
You can come back
very
on.
good points. Very nice. Thank you
We'll
very much.
bring you into our office next time, then you can socialise with some people.
Very good, though. I think it's more productive at home.
Yeah, Darren says, my mental health is brilliant working from home. Productivity is higher, and I'm at the gym every day to ensure I stay fit. Are you going in work hours, though, Darren? I don't know. See, I did it during the pandemic, and because I'm in a vulnerable category, being type 1, I stayed away from the office and did it all remotely, did the shows remotely. And it was sort of nice in a way, but I got very bored very quickly.
Yeah, and you like the sociability of an office as well, don't you? Like coming in and chatting to us and like.
You drives me mad.
He loves it, really. He wouldn't like to be at home. Jean says...
Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, I love you really, Zach.
Jean says it saves all the dreadful commuting, less traffic, better for the environment, less stress, better for families. It should be encouraged. Elon Musk just wants to buy one of his cars.
Elizabeth says, I've worked from home since 2020. I am disciplined to timekeeping, and I'm in contact with my colleagues daily, and I am not lazy. Well, that's great, Elizabeth. I think a lot of people are lazy. And I think, and I put myself in that category. If I had an office job and I was working from home, I know my brain would wander quickly.
Really?
I'd be looking at cat videos on YouTube before you know it.
I think it depends what kind of person you are and what kind of job you have as well.
Oh, yeah.
One of my friends is admin role, and she works so much better by herself at home because she doesn't get interrupted. Because she's admin, people come out to her all the time. Oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Little chit-chat. And she says she works a lot better under her own steam. There are lots of people like that.
Oh, now interesting. Lauren says, my 18-year-old daughter works for our local authority doing a comms apprenticeship. She works at home every day. As a mum, I've seen a decline in her general morale and get up and go. Jeez, I think it probably is very damaging for youngsters, actually, who also need to learn how to operate in a work environment.
Yeah.
Don't they? How that socialisation skills and all that sort of thing.
There's professional skills as well, yeah. It's a good point.
Hybrid, maybe.
Yeah, Tuesday to Thursday. If we had the kind of job that would allow us to do that.
We do Friday to Sunday, darling.
We do. That's very true, actually.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic point, well made.
Say nothing. Say nothing, in case we get caught out on it.
Keep your views coming in.
Very hard.
On work from home.
Very hard.
Very difficult.
Now, how do you avoid getting scammed when you're buying your next car? We'll tell you. This is Breakfast on GB News.
That's a nice car.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Morning to you. It's 9:34. This is... What are you laughing at?
Just the way he literally went from a conversation with me to morning. It's 9:34.
Yes, just kept going. It's 9:35 now. Stop talking. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Now, research from Zopa Bank shows that 6 in 10 people will have over a month to think about buying a car, with over half of UK drivers in the market for a used car when it comes to buying their next vehicle.
I mean, sorry, they spend only a month to think about buying a new car.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a long time.
Oh, see, I think that's a really long time.
No, think about it for months and months and months and months. It's a huge investment.
Oh.
Anyway, this is what Vicky Butler-Henderson, former Top Gear presenter, makes of it all. Morning to you. I think a month is no time at all when you're thinking about spending a lot of money.
I think it's too long to shop around, Vicky. What do you make of it?
Well, I constantly think about my next new car, so I think I probably spend years and years thinking about my next one. But that is the average. This is research done by Zopa Bank, which says that we take about 6 weeks to make the first step to think about a car, to then actually going into a dealership and looking at it and buying it. But we spend zero amount of time, pretty much, looking at the finance behind it and how much we can actually afford.
What's wrong with people? I think they're bad. It's part of the problem here that things do get very confusing. All these different types of schemes, because I bet very few people actually go in with a wad of cash and say, I'm going to pay for this vehicle. We all go on these so much a month schemes, don't we?
Yes, that's it, exactly. Most of us now pay per month for our car. And I think in this cost of living crisis situation that we're all in, it's really important to work out beforehand how much you can actually afford and what financial scheme is best for you. I mean, every finance sort of industry goes on APR, annual percentage rate, which is something we should all begin to learn to know more about when we're buying a car on finance. It is the standard way that we all compare the cost of how much money you're going to borrow. And you need to work out then whether you want to pay monthly on a PCP and then have a balloon payment at the end, which is a big payment at the end for you to own the car outright. Or you might want to go on a hire purchase where you pay a bit more per month, but you own the car at the end of your monthly payments. So there are many options, but we should get our finance sorted beforehand so that when we go into a dealership and look for our next car, we know exactly how much we can afford, and it gives us the power then to pick the perfect car for us.
It's now a good time to be looking at buying a new car, in the sense that with the PCP, often at the end of it, they will pay you what you owe on it. So you literally give the car back and start again. It's very rare that you have any equity left in the vehicle. Things are different at the moment because the second-hand car market is really rising. So actually, you can have more money in your car. So perhaps you can upgrade without having to find any more cash.
Absolutely brilliant point there, Stephen. Yes, exactly. There are certain cars that you could end up absolutely winning on, and then you can upgrade even more for your next car. So that's a perfect point. It is a very good time, I think, to buy that next car.
Very good.
Oh, thank you.
And most people are looking at the used car market, aren't they, Vicky? Yes, round of applause for you. Because, of course, cost of living crisis, people want their money to go further. They can't afford a brand new car.
That's absolutely right. So the second-hand car market is absolutely booming at the minute, and also because we have had a lot of delays in certain components through manufacturers for building brand new cars. So that has force the second-hand car market up. So it might be a good time for you to think about selling your car and then getting the cash from that and then investing in a finance scheme to get a better car. So there are loads of different options available, but I implore everyone just to put a little bit of time researching the finance before you then do the really exciting bit of going and picking the car.
Yeah, now, of course, when it comes to what sort of car to get, you don't necessarily want anything too speedy, I would suggest, as you see on shows like Top Gear and all that sort of thing, where it's all the very, very, very exciting cars normally. I know it was a different show when you did Top Gear back in the day, and it's perhaps slightly less risky than it is now, and slightly less adventurous. However, what do you make of? I mean, Freddie Flintoff saying he's not going to do it again, and all the rest of it. There have been a number of pretty bad accidents. Do you think these sort of things are being managed correctly now?
Well, I've been working on fifth gear for about 20 years now, and we give great advice on cars, and we also do entertaining things. There are a couple of racing drivers, including myself, on the show, so we know how to slide a car around a circuit, and we can show a car to its full potential. And equally, we can go through the buying process, or are you wanting an electric car or a hybrid car? We can do the everyday things that people need to learn about as well. But we need shows like Top Gear or the Grand Tour because they are, the big pizzazz, wow, stunt machines that give us entertainment. Imagine what a James Bond movie would be like if you didn't have a stunt or two in there. I think it all just needs just managing, and I hope that Top Gear will come back at some point, because it's an entertaining show.
Yeah, no. So actually, you mentioned electric cars. There's a real... Because I fancy an electric car. Range isn't good enough at the moment, and the infrastructure's pretty terrible still. And the government's missed loads of targets, apparently, for getting them in service stations up and down the motorways. When do you think we're going to get fully on track with electric cars? Because it's not just about the vehicles themselves that you're putting through their paces. It's about having the infrastructure and just being able to charge the blooming things.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, which is why I have always championed that we need another element, which is renewable fuels. So Formula One is sort of championing it to a certain extent. There are some manufacturers putting a lot of money into research behind it. So it's sort of green fuel that we could then fill up our petrol stations with, and it will allow you and I to run our V10s, V12s and everything for the rest of eternity alongside electric cars. So I think that there needs to be more thought in alternative fuels, green fuels for the future, and then we can all pick and choose whichever suits us best.
Always a joy to talk to you, and joy to think about owning a V12. Vicky, thanks very much indeed. Oh, I can dream.
You like the sound of that, don't you?
Oh, yeah, proper raw.
Yeah, oh.
Because at the minute, years ago, I used to have like a really sort of high-end engine.
Yeah.
I had a 6-litre car once.
Oh, is that big?
Yeah, yes, it is, yeah. It roared. It roared. It was a beauty. You see, it drank fuel.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want that now, would you?
No, it was a lot cheaper then.
You wouldn't want that now. Anyway, boys and their toys.
Oh, I love them.
It's 9:42. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. And Russian diamond imports into the UK will be banned as part of a new wave of sanctions against Russia. Announcing the measures during his trip to Japan, the Prime Minister said the ban includes imports of Russian-origin copper, aluminium and nickel.
Counting is underway for the Northern Ireland local elections. The polls closed last night. There are 400 seats up for grabs across 11 councils. It's the first electoral test for parties since last year's Assembly elections, and all eyes on the DUP.
Promoting lower calorie takeaways in delivery apps could help to tackle obesity. That's according to 3 new studies that found calorie labels played a major role in reducing the overall calorie content of the orders.
It's a very odd job that we have, because especially if you're watching on telly rather than listening on the radio, because what you do is, we have stuff to go through, and what we can't always see is what's actually going out to you, what's on screen. And I've just noticed, Sandra, we've been talking about food apps, but just showing someone cooking chicken in a wok. What's that got to do with the food app? I have no idea. But it is the last time we're going to show it, and I've just noticed.
Well, people ordering
apologise.
Chinese.
Yeah, but that wasn't a Chinese takeaway. That was some fancy chef doing it.
What was it?
With fancy ingredients.
Well, you never know. It could be high-end takeaway.
Showing us how to cook from home. Ken Hom just cut his face off. I don't know.
Lots of you getting in touch on the work from home debate.
Oh, sorry.
Is it immoral? Is that what Elon Musk said? I think it was.
Yes,
immoral?
It's a moral choice, and it's not moral to work from home because lots of people can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where he's coming from that, because if you are a plumber or a sparky or a carpenter or whatever, and you can't, it's not an option, is it? You can't do it. So does it therefore seem very unfair that some people say, I'm just going to work from home today? Yeah. So I get it.
It's saving people an absolute fortune, though. £4,000 or £5,000 on a season ticket in some parts of the country. I mean, why wouldn't you, really? There's a message here. Let me find the one. Oh, yeah. David says, I'm happier working from home. I feel as if I'm under less pressure to do my job without managers around. This results in better interactions and outcomes for my customers and for the business itself. And with modern technology, I still get to interact with my colleagues.
It's not the same as being... I mean, I get it, but it's not the same as being in an office. John says people who oppose working from home obviously haven't had to travel on the London Underground at peak times day after day with their nose stuck in somebody else's armpit. Yeah, I can sympathise with that.
Alan says both of my neighbours work from home and they are very productive. They cut the grass and the hedges, they hang out the washing, and they even manage to fit in a walk with the dog and an odd trip to the coffee shop.
Yeah, Mike in Lockwood says all these lazy civil servants and others working from home and with their London waiting, because often people get paid more money in London just because it's like more expensive to live there, should have all of that taken away from them. Yeah, I can see both sides of the argument, and I say it from the perspective of someone who had to do it under lockdown and got bored quite quickly.
You're also a very sociable person, though, and you do like coming into the office and seeing us all, don't you?
Yeah, well, I do. But I also know that if I was... It's different in this type of job, because once you're on, you're on. You've got to do the work. You haven't got a choice, have you? But if I was doing an office job, or accounts or something like that, I would be lazy.
What would you do if you weren't
do this? I don't know. So my other project, you see, a doctor...
Oh, you'd be good at that.
Because I did apply to human physiology and things. So
bodily
so
things
that could
don't creep you out either.
Bodily things don't creep me out.
No.
Things I've had to do for you.
Yeah.
And or a detective.
And you'd be good at that as well. Very good.
Because I'm nosy.
Yeah, and you're clever as well. You'd be good at that.
But an office job I'd be all right at. But if I didn't have people around me, I think I'd slink off, head to the coffee machine.
You'd be slinking.
Have a little snooze for an
Go for a
hour.
little walk with Timmy. Does he go for a walk? No.
Timmy, well, no, he goes out in the garden.
There you go.
He goes for a walk on his own. He won't put a collar on him. Cats aren't like that.
No, they're not. But do keep your views coming in, whether it's work from home, how you'd spend your money if you're on the Sunday Times rich list. We've been talking about a lot today, haven't we?
We have. I tell you what, should we talk about Martin Scorsese being united with Leonardo DiCaprio, Leo as I call him, it's Leo to his friends, for their new crime film Killers of the Flower Moon?
Yes.
What's your title?
Yes. Well, it's set in 1920s Oklahoma and it depicts the serial murder of members of the oil-wealthy Assange Nation. Here's a sneak peek.
The Osage took their name from Missouri and Osage rivers. Neokanska, children of the Middle Waters. Move, said the great white father. There are many. So many hungry wolves. Can you find the wolves in this picture?
See, the intro didn't sell it very well,
Oh, no,
I don't think, but that
I'd
looks
watch
quite
that.
good.
Ominous, I would say.
Anyway, it premieres at the Cannes Film Festival tomorrow. Stephanie Tecchi is there, but unfortunately, the line isn't very good at the moment, probably down to the bad weather in Cannes.
Bad weather. And lots of people, to be fair.
Yeah, but I tell you what, it does. I mean, anything Scorsese turns his hand to is just a joy.
And
isn't it?
him with Leonardo DiCaprio.
What were they in before? Was it Gangs of New York or
The
something?
one in the... They're in the Arctic or something.
I don't know. I've seen a few things with Leo in, but I'm not his sort of biggest fan in a way. But it'd be,
What are you calling him, Leo?
Leo, yes, Leo.
First,
but I think that looks like a really good
Wolf
watch.
of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street. Oh,
Shutter
yes.
Island, The Departed.
Oh,
I
they've
mean,
done
all the
quite a
good
lot.
ones. All the good ones.
Oh, yes, I haven't seen any of those.
They've done 5 feature films together.
There you go. But I tell you, the one that's really getting my excitement going is the new Indiana Jones film. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Sounds corny as anything, and it will be, but it's going to be, and it's going to be the last outing for Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. The man is 80.
And he looks
80.
great, to be fair, and he looks even better in this film. They put like a special filter over him in the film, didn't they, to make him look
I think they
younger.
put a special filter on all of him, because if you see him here, this is Cam with Callista Flockhart, his wife, and he sort of looks older than he does, even when he's playing his real age in the film. Have a look, and you'll see him sort of meant to be as he is now. And then...
Yeah,
so
he does look considerably younger, doesn't he?
He looks younger there, so I don't know if they've put this special filter on him even there.
I think they have. I think that genuinely in all the scenes they've kind of given him this...
But then, this is the stuff from, like, the 1980s, when they actually make him look, like, properly young, like he's in his late 30s, early 40s. And the technology for that is absolutely phenomenal. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, it is absolutely incredible. Is this him here when he's younger? Yeah.
Oh, it's just a little... You just get the tiny little clips of it.
You get a sense, don't you? I mean, it's incredible, really, what technology can do now. We also caught there a glimpse of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who you may know from Fleabag. She stars in this film as well. She was on the red carpet last night in this wonderful black gown, the fishtail.
Boring.
And black gloves. Well, you say that. It's on the front page of almost all the national newspapers today. People have loved Phoebe Waller-Bridge's outfit.
I'll tell you what annoys...
Phoebe's date with Destiny, that's what the Daily Telegraph has gone with. I mean, she looks good, you can't deny.
Well, no, I'll tell you what, I mean, she's an incredibly talented woman, actually, and she's a great actress, she's a great writer. What annoys me slightly is the fact that she's the darling of the moment, so she just seems to be getting into everything, and everyone's going, oh, it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, rather than just getting on with it. It's not her fault.
No, it's not her fault.
She's just, you know, she's milking it for you. Good on her.
That's the way it is, though, isn't it? You are the diamond of the season.
Yes.
For Bridgerton.
That's true. Oh, now, I just saw that. This is features, Daily Telegraph features, and there's a nice picture of Harry and Meghan. Should you so choose it. She's looking adoringly at him. It's normally the other way around, isn't it?
No, she does that.
But it's their wedding anniversary today.
Yes. And it's a certain Mr Dixon's wedding anniversary as well, so happy wedding anniversary to both of you.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Yes, not just mine, obviously, that would be tragic. But yeah, there you go. It's they're very nice.
And this piece is done by our very own Camilla Tominey.
Oh, is it?
It is. So check that out. That's in the Telegraph, isn't it? Public or Private, The Sussex Paradox by Camilla Tominey. That's in the Telegraph today.
Well, now what they've got plenty of money. They've made a fortune from Netflix. What would you do if you were on the Sunday Times rich list, which is out today? We've picked Harry Kane, 51 million quid he's worth. So what would you do with it all? If I were rich, says Stephen Dudley, I'd help all those animal charities who depend on hard-working volunteers.
Irina says, if I was lucky enough to win that much money, apart from buying a new house and a car, I would start an animal shelter here on Crete, where I live. The ones that are here are doing a brilliant job, but there aren't enough of them for the number of stray animals. Very sweet.
Yeah, Darren, you see, I like this because it's generosity, but a bit of nice selfishness as well. Darren says, if I was a millionaire, I'd support my local charities, the homeless, the disabled and churches, people who want to start up their first businesses, good, and family members. I'd also have 2 fast bikes made so I can enter the Isle of Man TT this year. See, that's it. A little bit for yourself as well.
Oh, you've got to treat yourself.
Yeah, so you should. But I like that. But you are a generous bunch, I have to say.
You are. I think better than us, maybe.
Yeah, better than us, yeah.
We'd just go on holiday, wouldn't we?
Oh, yeah. Not together.
Not together.
I think it might drive me crackers.
Can't stand each other.
No. But, which is why I'm not coming in tomorrow. I'm refusing.
No, fair enough.
We're having a night out tonight, so there you go.
Happy anniversary to you. Enjoy your celebrations. I'll be back from 6 o'clock tomorrow. But stay right here because Esther and Phil are going to be right with you after your Friday forecast.
Hello, a very good morning to you. A fine start for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Colder, yes, but brighter compared with recent mornings. Cloudier further south and some showers about first thing. Outbreaks of mostly light rain at this stage associated with the cold front which is pushing south. However, into the afternoon, as temperatures rise, that cold front likely to become a bit more lively. Some heavy downpours starting to develop. As early as early afternoon, I think, we're going to see those showers developing across the Midlands into eastern England. The cloud breaks up and it starts to turn warmer as well, but That will help to fuel some of these downpours. We could even see the odd thunderstorm break out across central southern England, southwest England, the Midlands, for example. They'll be hit and miss in between, some brighter spells, highs of 19 to 20 Celsius. A brighter day to come for Scotland and Northern Ireland, Northern England as well, compared with recent days. There will be an additional amount of cloud by the afternoon, but it's going to stay largely dry until the evening, and that's when the next weather front starts to move into the far northwest, bringing some outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle. Further south, the showers do die away into the evening, and we'll see clear spells developing overnight. A cool night in places, actually, with temperatures dipping in some sheltered spots down towards the low single figures, so a touch of grass frost possible, say through central parts of England into the north of England. But otherwise, plenty of bright skies on Saturday, and apart from some low cloud lingering around the North Sea coast, for many, it's a day of warm, sunny spells. Scotland and Northern Ireland, less bright, I think, compared with today. There'll be a bit more cloud around. There'll be these outbreaks of mostly light rain.